I woke up to a message from my husband. Contractions have started. Maya's about to give birth. There was news about my sister-in-law, Mia, who was on the verge of having her baby. Though I don't usually interact much with Mia, the thought of my niece arriving filled me with excitement. I dialed my husband, eager to share in the joy, but he sounded rushed and distracted. "Don't come to the hospital," he said quickly. "What? I'm going to the hospital," I replied. "Why would you say that?" "Just don't come, okay," he said, cutting off the call abruptly. I was left with a whirlwind of questions. Why was he so insistent I stay away? What was going on? Little did I know, an unexpected revelation awaited me in just a few hours. My name is Sophia, and I work for a sizable stationery company. I've been married to William for 2 years. While our relationship isn't as passionate as it once was, we get along well enough. I just celebrated my 30th birthday, and with William being 35, I've been contemplating the idea of starting a family. One day, while William was out at a barbecue with a colleague, I was home alone when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother-in-law, Lily, standing on the doorstep. "Lily." "Sophia, sorry for dropping by unannounced. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd pop in." "No problem at all. Come on in." "Thank you, I'd love to." William and I live about an hour away from his parents' house, taking the highway. It's not too far, but we don't see Lily very often. Despite the distance, we have the opportunity to visit each other when time allows. Lily would occasionally stop by, like today, while she was out shopping. We might also make trips to see her if our schedules permit. I made coffee and set out some snacks that Lily had brought. After taking a sip, Lily looked pleased and said, "Thank you." "Guess what?" she continued. "Maya told me she's pregnant." "Really? Maya is?" "Yes, it's quite a surprise. Mia, who is William's sister and my sister-in-law, got married a year before us and now lives out of state. She's always so warm and welcoming at family gatherings. Even though she's my sister-in-law, I find her to be a lovely sister. Lately, as I've been thinking more about starting a family, Maya's pregnancy feels particularly relatable. I'm not feeling any jealousy, just genuine happiness for her. Maya and her husband have been married for 3 years now, and it seems like the perfect time for them to have a child, don't you think?" Lily nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. They had their time as a couple, and now it's the right moment for a child. I remember going through that phase myself. I've been contemplating having kids too, considering I'm already 30. "Don't stress about it," I reassured her. "Having children in your 30s is quite common these days. Just move at your own pace." "Thank you. We've never had the kind of mother and daughter-in-law drama you often see on TV. Lily always greets me with a smile and never pressures me about having kids. Thanks to her, I've been able to take my time thinking about starting a family." That evening, when William came home from the barbecue, I shared my conversation with Lily. "Hey William, guess who came by today?" "Lily, and guess what? Maya's pregnant." "Really? Maya is?" "Yeah, can you believe it? We're going to be an aunt and uncle. I wonder if it's going to be a boy or a girl." "Exciting, isn't it?" "It is. It's thrilling to think about." William's face lit up with a smile, clearly thrilled by the news. Although I felt a twinge of unease, I assumed he was just genuinely happy about his sister's pregnancy. At that moment, I hoped this happiness would translate into a serious consideration about starting a family of our own. Feeling encouraged, I voiced my thoughts. "I want a baby too." "What? Oops, sorry, that just slipped out. I'm already 30, and with our ages, it seems like the right time." "Oh right, I hadn't really thought about it." "It's okay, I'm sorry for bringing it up so suddenly." I apologized, and William didn't say much more. I had hoped for a response like, "I want one too," or "I want you to have my child," but those words never came. Perhaps it's understandable that William isn't ready for that step yet. Over the past 6 months, he's been coming home late, working overtime almost every day. I often come home after midnight, and he even works weekends sometimes. With his hectic schedule, it's likely he hasn't had much time to think about starting a family. I took it in stride and decided not to bring up the topic again. 3 months later, William was at work on his day off when Lily called to say she'd be bringing lunch over. "Lily, you didn't have to go to all that trouble." "It's no trouble at all. I was already out shopping nearby and was planning to have a simple lunch by myself, so this is a nice surprise." "I'm glad to hear that." As we enjoyed the lunch Lily had brought, we chatted about various topics. When the conversation shifted to Maya's pregnancy, I decided to ask Lily something that had been on my mind. By the way, do you know the gender of Maya's baby yet? Yes, she told me just 3 days ago. It was the first I'd heard. Oh, so you do know? Yes, it's a girl. A girl? How wonderful. Girls' clothes are so cute, though they can be pricey. But really, what matters most is that the baby is healthy. Absolutely. I'm hoping for a healthy birth for Maya's baby. Let's all look forward to it. According to Lily, Maya plans to give birth at a hospital near Lily's house. After the birth, Maya will be staying at the in-laws' place for a while, so we'll have the opportunity to visit. I'll drop by once things have settled down, Lily said with a smile before leaving. 2 weeks later, I found myself working late and didn't get home until after 11 p.m. As I was getting out of the bath, William arrived home. Hey William, you're home late again. Huh? You're just getting out of the bath? Yeah, I had to work late too. That's unusual. Well, since you're here, I wanted to ask you something. What's up? William showed me his phone screen and asked, which one do you think is best? The screen displayed various types of baby cribs. There were so many options, and William's face lit up with excitement as he pointed them out. At that moment, I felt a strange sense of discomfort. If William is looking at baby cribs now, it must be for Mia. While it's not out of the question for him to buy a gift for her, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. William is usually quite frugal, even with me. He keeps my birthday gifts under $100, so it didn't make sense that he was considering a crib for over $500. As William eagerly browsed through the cribs, I cautiously spoke up. Is this crib a gift for Mia? Yeah, it is. She's my sister, after all. I want to do something nice for her. Wouldn't it be better to ask Maya directly? People have their own preferences for sizes and specific features. You're right, I'll check with her. Yeah, that sounds like the best approach. William seemed a bit rushed, and something about his demeanor felt off. From that day forward, my unease about his behavior grew. Whenever he had spare time, he was on the phone researching baby items, not just typical baby clothes, but expensive items like baby baths, strollers, and car seats. Normally, these decisions are made by the parents-to-be, so I couldn't understand why William was so focused on researching them. It left me feeling puzzled. One day, William came home with a shopping bag from a well-known baby clothing store. "Tada!" he exclaimed, excitedly pulling out the newly purchased clothes. "Sophia, check this out. Isn't it adorable? It is really cute, but it's for a boy, right?" Huh? What do you mean? William had bought a onesie with dinosaur illustrations, clearly intended for a boy. While kids can wear whatever they like, giving a gift meant for the opposite gender could come off as thoughtless. When I pointed this out, William quickly tried to cover his tracks. Okay, I know Maya is having a girl. Why did you say it like you didn't know? No, I did know. I just thought this was cute. William quickly shoved the baby clothes back into the bag and left the living room. Isn't this a gift for Mia? Then why didn't he just give it to her? He only took it out to show me, I wondered, puzzled by William's behavior. Despite my questions, I decided not to press further. 2 months later, while William was working on his day off and I was busy cleaning the house, a message from him popped up on my phone. It was news that Maya had gone into labor. She's in labor. The baby is finally on the way. I was so flustered and excited that I didn't know what to do with myself. I immediately called William. Hello. William, is Maya really in labor? Which hospital is she at? Yes, it seems she is. The hospital is a university hospital in the neighboring state. What? Isn't that quite far from your parents' house? Well, I won't be able to come back for a while, William said. Why's that? It's pretty obvious. Labor can take hours, and even after the baby is born. I understand, but will you be there for the entire process? Yeah, it looks like the baby might arrive soon. Alrighty, in that case, I'll head over right away. Lily often mentioned that Maya would be happy to see me, so I planned to visit if the timing was right. However, William seemed unusually rushed. Don't come to the hospital. What? Why not? I should be there. Just stay home. There's nothing you can do here. Anyway, even if I can't help, I want to congratulate Mia. I'll be at the hospital, so you should just stay home. Don't come, okay? William said and hung up abruptly. My mind was racing with questions. What's going on? Why the sudden refusal? I waited for a few hours with no update on the baby's arrival. Curious, I decided to call Lily. Lily? Lily's voice was calm as ever. Hi, Lily. How's Maya doing right now? Oh, Mia. She just went for a walk. A walk? During labor? Lily chuckled at my reaction. Then she told me something unexpected. No, Sophia, labor is still a ways off. What? The due date is next month. Maya was just over last week. Is that so? Don't worry. I'll let you know as soon as labor actually starts. William too, of course. At that moment, a troubling thought struck me. The late nights William claimed were due to overtime, the pricey baby cribs he'd been eyeing, and most troubling of all, his insistence that Maya was in labor when she wasn't. Everything that had unsettled me suddenly fell into place, and a surge of anger began to rise within me. So that's what's been happening. I never thought William would do something like this. Well, now I'm determined to make his life a living hell. Taking a deep breath, I heard Lily call my name from the other end of the phone. Sophia. I decided to tell Lily the truth. Lily, I think William might be cheating on me. What? What do you mean? I can't be certain, but he sent me a message saying he's with Mia at the hospital because she's in labor. What? That doesn't make sense. He also bought a onesie for a boy and showed it to me, even though Maya's baby is supposed to be a girl. So you're saying he might have a son with the woman he's cheating with? Probably yes. A heavy silence settled between us. Lily was the first to break it. Hold on, Sophia. I'm coming over. Now? But. Just wait. Bye. The call ended, and an hour later, Lily and Maya arrived at my house. Maya too. We heard William was causing a lot of trouble, so we decided to come over. I'm sorry, you're pregnant, and this must be hard on you. Not at all. I can't give birth in peace until we deal with that idiot William. Maya grinned triumphantly, and Lily stood confidently beside her. Their presence strengthened my resolve. A few hours later, William came home, his expression a mix of shock and confusion when he saw the three of us. What? Why are you here? He looked pale, as if he might faint. Maya spoke first. Why are you asking that? I'm not in labor. Wait, no. Who did you mistake me for? There's no way you could have confused me. Right, oh, well. Mia quickly grabbed William's phone and started scrolling through the photos. They were all of a woman who had just given birth, holding a newborn. Lily turned to William, her voice low and stern. William, what is this? Mom, there's no excuse for this. Exactly. If you try to brush this off as a misunderstanding, I'll call this woman right now. Please don't. I haven't told her I'm married. How much trouble do you have to cause before you're satisfied? William's face turned ashen, and he trembled. I handed him the prepared divorce papers. Send these now. I'll get in touch later about the alimony. Wait, Sophia, I don't want to get a divorce. Don't joke with me. You have a child with another woman, and you think we can stay together? What you've done is unforgivable. Sign the divorce papers and apologize, you scum. My anger was so intense that I forgot Lily and Maya were present. In the end, William signed the divorce papers, tears streaming down his face. With the support of Lily and Mia, I consulted a lawyer about the situation, including Harper, the woman he cheated with. We had a thorough discussion and decided to seek compensation from both William and Harper. Since Harper was unaware of William's marriage, she had half of her compensation covered by him. Additionally, Harper demanded child support from William. He had even proposed remarriage, but she flatly rejected him, saying, "Just pay the money, you scum. It's all his fault. Serves you right." I still maintain a close relationship with Lily and the others. Maya has safely given birth, and I recently gave her a baby gift. During that visit, Maya said, "Even though you've cut ties with that idiot William, you're still Sophia, and this child is still your niece." Her kindness meant the world to me. If Lily and Maya hadn't shown up that day, things might not have resolved so smoothly. With deep gratitude, I'm committed to slowly repaying their kindness.
The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched my brother Ryan work the crowd at his own surprise birthday party. Every fake laugh, every calculated gesture. It was all so perfectly orchestrated, just like everything else in his charmed life. "Speech! Speech!" the crowd chanted, and Ryan stepped onto the small platform we'd set up in the garden, his perfect white teeth gleaming under the string lights. I'm Neve, the sister who planned this whole affair, though you wouldn't know it from the way our parents were fawning over Ryan like he'd personally hung the moon. 38 years old and still their golden child. I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, Ryan began, his voice carrying that practiced warmth that made everyone lean in closer. Especially my wonderful sister who put this all together. The crowd turned to me with polite applause. I raised my glass, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. That's when I noticed Landon, Ryan's business partner, slipping through the crowd toward the house. Something about his urgency made my event planner's instincts tingle. Ryan's always been an inspiration, our father announced, joining him on the platform. From his first business venture to his latest charity initiative, a commotion from the house cut him off. Landon burst back into the garden, his face ashen. Ryan, we need you inside. Now. The perfect smile faltered for just a second. I watched my brother's jaw tighten as he excused himself, following Landon with measured steps that barely contained his tension. Everything okay? I called after them, already moving to damage control mode. Stay here, Ryan snapped, not even turning around. I waited exactly 30 seconds before following them inside. The sounds of the party faded as I approached Ryan's home office, replaced by harsh whispers and what sounded like someone throwing things. How did they get these numbers? Ryan's voice, stripped of its usual charm, sounded dangerous. Who else knows? The email went to everyone on the investor list. Landon replied. We need to get ahead of this before... I pushed the door open. Papers were scattered across the floor, Ryan's laptop screen displaying what looked like financial documents. Both men whirled to face me, and for a moment, I saw something I'd never seen in my brother's eyes before. Fear. Get out, Ryan said, but I was already scanning the documents visible on his screen. Numbers jumped out at me. Massive discrepancies, redirected funds, fabricated reports. The charity initiative, I said slowly, pieces clicking into place. It's all fake, isn't it? This doesn't concern you. Landon stepped forward, trying to block my view. Like hell it doesn't. I just spent weeks planning this party, inviting half of your investors, vouching for your character. And we're grateful. Ryan cut in, his smooth mask sliding back into place. But this is just a minor accounting issue. Nothing for you to worry about. I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign in my throat. Minor? Those numbers look like fraud to me, Ryan. The kind that puts people in prison. You always were quick to judge, he said, his voice dropping to that quiet tone that used to make me feel 2 inches tall when we were kids. Always thinking the worst of me. But what would you know about running a business? Planning parties isn't exactly high finance. The familiar sting of his dismissal hit its mark, but this time, something else rose up alongside it. Rage, maybe. Or clarity. I know enough to recognize when I'm being used, I said. You wanted me to plan this party, invite all these people just so you could control the narrative when this broke, didn't you? His silence was answer enough. Outside, the party continued, oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated in this room. I turned to leave, my mind already racing with implications, but Ryan's hand caught my arm. Neve, he said softly. Family protects family. You understand that, right? I looked at his hand on my arm, then up into those eyes that had always known exactly how to manipulate me. Funny, I replied, pulling free. I don't remember that rule applying when I needed protection. I walked out of the office, leaving my brother and his partner to their crisis. The party lights seemed harsher now, the laughter more hollow. I had a choice to make, and for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I was going to do about my perfect brother. The family dinner table had always been a battlefield. Tonight, 3 days after Ryan's party disaster, the tension was thick enough to cut with the expensive silver knife my mother insisted on using for these occasions. The media's getting it all wrong, my father said, cutting into his steak. These accusations against Ryan's foundation are completely baseless. I stabbed at my salad, watching Ryan masterfully spin his story. He sat at his usual place of honor, Landon beside him, both of them the picture of concerned businessmen wrongfully accused. It's just a clerical error, Ryan explained, his voice carrying that perfect note of measured concern. Our accountants are already sorting it out. The real tragedy is how this affects the children our foundation supports. My mother reached across the table to squeeze his hand. Of course they are, darling. Anyone who knows you knows you'd never… Actually, I interrupted, setting down my fork. I'd love to hear more about these children. Which programs specifically are at risk? The silence that followed was delicious. Ryan's eyes met mine, a flash of warning in them. Neve. My father's tone carried that familiar edge of disappointment. This isn't the time for interrogations. No? I smiled, remembering the documents I'd seen on Ryan's computer. I just think it's interesting that none of the press releases mention any specific programs or beneficiaries. Landon cleared his throat. We maintain privacy to protect… the children, right. I took a sip of wine. How convenient. I've been meaning to ask. Ryan smoothly changed the subject. How's the Collins account going? I heard there were some concerns about your proposal. My hand tightened around the wine glass. Mr. Collins was my biggest potential client, and I'd been pursuing his business for months. The fact that Ryan knew about any concerns meant he'd been talking to people he shouldn't. My proposal is fine, I said evenly, unless someone's been spreading rumors. Just looking out for you, sis, like always. Ryan's smile didn't reach his eyes. Remember that summer you tried to start your own marketing firm? If I hadn't stepped in… You mean when you told all your contacts I was unstable and unreliable? The words burst out before I could stop them. Yeah, that was real brotherly of you. Never. My mother's shock was perfectly practiced. Your brother was protecting you from making a terrible mistake. You weren't ready. I had 3 major clients lined up, I shot back, until they mysteriously backed out after meetings with Ryan. You're being paranoid. Ryan sighed, playing to his audience. Mom, Dad, I'm worried about her. She's been acting strange ever since the party. Because I saw what was on your computer? What computer? My father demanded. Nothing, Ryan and I said simultaneously, our eyes locked in silent warfare. Landon stood suddenly. I think it's time we discuss the real reason we called this dinner. He pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table to me. We want to hire you, Neve, for a series of events to restore confidence in the foundation. I stared at the envelope, understanding dawning. You want me to help cover this up? We want you to help family, my father corrected. This could be good for everyone. Your business would benefit from the exposure. My business? I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. My business that I built after Ryan sabotaged my first attempt? That business? Now you're just being dramatic, Ryan said softly. Take the job, Nevi. Show everyone you can be a team player for once. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. A team player? Like when I gave up my college fund so you could start your first business? Or when I worked 2 jobs to help Mom and Dad after your failed venture nearly bankrupted them? That's enough. My father's fist hit the table. Your brother has always looked out for this family. If you can't be grateful… Grateful? The word tasted like poison. For what? The way he's looking out for me now? Trying to make me complicit in whatever fraud he's running? Ryan's mask slipped for just a second, showing something ugly underneath. Be very careful what you're implying, sister dear. I grabbed my purse, heading for the door. Behind me, I heard my mother's disappointed sigh, my father's angry muttering. But it was Ryan's voice that followed me out. Think about the offer, Neve. Family should stick together, especially when things get difficult. I didn't turn around, but I felt his threat settle like ice in my stomach. As I walked to my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed. Maya? Remember that favor you owe me? I need everything you can find on Ryan's foundation. Everything. Maya's research landed in my inbox at 3 a.m, but I was already awake, reviewing the footage from Ryan's live interview. My brother sat there, perfectly composed in his tailored suit, spinning a story about financial transparency and commitment to charity. The morning news show host leaned forward, sympathetic. These allegations must be difficult for your family. They are. Ryan's voice cracked just enough to seem genuine. Especially since... He paused, masterfully manufacturing reluctance. Since what, Mr. Brooks? My phone buzzed. Maya, you need to turn this off. Now. But I couldn't. I watched, paralyzed as my brother destroyed me on national television, since discovering my own sister might be involved in spreading these rumors. Ryan's face showed perfect concern. Nevai, she's always struggled with our family dynamic. When she started making accusations about the foundation's finances, we realized she might need help. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. On screen, the host's expression shifted to concerned fascination. Are you saying your sister is behind these allegations? I hate to say this publicly, Ryan continued, but her behavior has become increasingly erratic. She's been jealous of the foundation's success, and when we wouldn't hire her company for our events... My phone rang. Maya. He's lying, I said immediately. I know, but that's not why I'm calling. Check the files I sent, page 16. I pulled up Maya's research while Ryan continued destroying my reputation on national television. The document was a series of bank transfers, dates, amounts. I don't understand what I'm looking at. The scandal about the foundation? They leaked it themselves. Look at the timestamps. They knew exactly when those financial records would go public. They planned it. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The surprise party, the convenient discovery of the financial irregularities, Ryan's perfect response, and now this interview. They're using me as a scapegoat, I whispered. It gets worse. Check your email. A new message popped up from Mr. Collins's office. Subject line, contract termination. The phone slipped from my fingers as I opened it. Professional concerns, recent developments, reputation risks. My doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the window, I saw news vans pulling up outside my house. Maya, I have to go. Don't talk to them. And Nevai, there's something else in those files you need to see. I hung up as pounding started on my door. My phone exploded with notifications, messages, calls, social media alerts. Through my window, I watched reporters setting up cameras. Another text from Maya. Check the transfer dates against your old marketing firm's closure. With shaking hands, I scrolled through the documents. The dates aligned perfectly. Large sums moving through shell companies, ending up in accounts that had pressured my former clients to drop me. All traced back to Ryan and Landon's holding company. The doorbell rang again. Through the peephole, I saw Landon standing there, alone. I know you're home, Neve, he called out. Let's talk about damage control. I pressed my back against the door, heart pounding. Go away. Can't do that. Your brother's concerned about you. We all are. His voice dripped with fake sincerity. The media's going to run with this story either way. We can help you frame it. Get you the help you need. The help I need? I laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. Like the help you gave my marketing firm? A pause. I don't know what you think you found. I found everything, Landon. The transfers, the shell companies, the manufactured scandal, it's all here. Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its false concern. Be smart about this, Neve. You're already looking unstable to the media. If you start throwing around conspiracy theories... My phone buzzed again. Maya. Don't tell them what you know. There's more. Call me. Think about your business. Landon continued. Your future. We can still fix this. I looked at my phone, at the email from Mr. Collins, at the growing media circus outside my house. Years of Ryan's manipulation, of being the family disappointment, of sacrificing everything while he took more and more. You're right, I said finally. We should talk about fixing this. Smart girl. I'll tell them you're coming out to make a statement. I watched through the window as Landon approached the reporters, my hands clenching into fists. They wanted a statement? I was about to give them one they'd never forget. The cafe was nearly empty when Aunt Clara slid into the booth across from me, her face drawn with worry. 3 days had passed since Ryan's interview, and my phone hadn't stopped ringing with canceled contracts. "You shouldn't have come alone," she said, glancing around. "Not after what happened at the press conference." I touched my split lip, still tender from where security had escorted me away from the microphones. The headlines had been brutal. "Unstable sister attacks philanthropist brother." "I needed to hear it from you," I said. "About the adoption papers Maya found." Clara's hands trembled as she pulled out a yellowed envelope. "I was there when your parents brought Ryan home. They made everyone swear to keep it quiet. Wanted him to feel like he truly belonged." 32 years, I whispered. All those times they said I needed to be more like my brother, and he wasn't even... Blood doesn't make family, Neve. No, lies make family, right? I pushed away my untouched coffee. "Did Ryan know?" "He found out the summer before your marketing firm launched." Clara wouldn't meet my eyes. "That's why he..." The pieces clicked into place. Ryan's sudden interest in my business ventures, the sabotage, his desperate need to maintain control. My phone buzzed. Maya again. I'd been avoiding her calls since the press conference disaster, but this time I glimpsed the message preview. "Collins called. You need to see this." "I have to go." I stood, but Clara caught my wrist. "There's more." "The foundation scandal?" "It's worse than you think. Ryan isn't just moving money around. He's been using it to track down his birth parents." The world tilted sideways. "What?" "He found them last month. They're dead. Car accident years ago. But they had another son, younger." My phone buzzed again. "Maya. Urgent. Colin's exposing everything tomorrow." "I don't understand," I said, though part of me was beginning to. "What does this have to do with..." "Landon Reed isn't just Ryan's business partner," Clara said softly. "He's Ryan's biological brother." The cafe door chimed. Through the window, I saw a familiar car pull up. Ryan's Mercedes. "They've been watching me." Clara's voice shook. "I shouldn't have told you, but after what they did to your business, your reputation..." "Get out the back," I interrupted, already moving. "Now." We slipped through the kitchen just as Ryan entered the cafe. Through the back window, I watched him scan the empty booth, his face darkening. My phone rang. Mr. Collins himself this time. "Miss Brooks." His voice was clipped. "I've received some interesting documentation about your brother's foundation, and about what really happened to your marketing firm." "Mr. Collins, I can explain. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow morning. Given our previous conversation, I thought you deserved advance notice." The line went dead. Beside me, Clara clutched her purse, looking terrified. "They won't let you expose them," she whispered. "They've worked too hard to keep this hidden." My phone lit up with a text from Ryan. "We need to talk. Now." Another from Landon. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I thought about the years of manipulation, the calculated destruction of my business, the careful orchestration of my public humiliation, all to protect their secret, to maintain their control. "What are you going to do?" Clara asked. Through the window, I watched Ryan emerge from the cafe, speaking urgently into his phone. His perfectly crafted world was about to shatter, just like he'd shattered mine. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want," I said, a plan forming. "A family reunion. Neve, they're dangerous, the things they've done. Trust me." I pulled out my phone, typing a response to Ryan. I learned from the best. To Ryan, "Fine. Tonight, the foundation office, just us." His reply came instantly. 8 p.m. Come alone." I turned to Clara. "I need everything you have. Documents, photos, anything about the adoption and their real parents." "What are you planning?" I thought about the security cameras in Ryan's office, about Maya's hacking skills, about the press conference tomorrow morning. "The truth," I said, watching Ryan's car pull away. Whether they're ready for it or not, my phone buzzed one last time. Maya got into their system. You won't believe what I found. I smiled, feeling the weight of years of lies and manipulation finally shifting into something else. Something like power. Game on, brother, I whispered. Game on. The Foundation's office gleamed with success and old money, all polished marble and mahogany. At 7:55 p.m., I stood in Ryan's empty office, Maya's latest findings burning a hole in my phone. The security cameras were already looping old footage. Her gift to me. You're early. Ryan's voice made me jump. He stood in the doorway, Landon a shadow behind him. Always so eager to please. Funny, I remember you teaching me that. I turned, noting how they positioned themselves between me and the door. Where are the adoption papers, Ryan? His smile flickered. Aunt Clara's been talking. She's not the only one. I pulled out my phone, watching their reflections in the window. Your birth parents' accident? Not very accidental, was it? Landon stepped forward, but Ryan held up a hand. What exactly do you think you know? I know you found them 6 months before they died. I know about the insurance policy that funded your first real business venture. I met his eyes in the glass. I know they were going to expose you. Careful, sister. The word dripped with venom. You're threading dangerous ground. Am I still your sister? Or just another loose end? You're whatever we need you to be. Landon cut in. Like tomorrow's press conference. You're going to admit to fabricating evidence against the Foundation. Mental breakdown, stress-induced paranoia, take your pick. I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet office. That's not happening. No? Ryan moved closer. What about Mr. Collins? Would be a shame if his wife learned about those private meetings you've been having. You mean the ones where he showed me proof of your embezzlement? Proof? Landon scoffed. Your word against ours. Again. How did that work out last time? My hand tightened around my phone. Things are different now. Are they? Ryan's voice softened dangerously. You're still the unstable little sister, desperate for attention. Who's going to believe you? The FBI might. I watched their reflections freeze. Maya found the offshore accounts. The real ones, not your decoys. She's been tracking your movements for weeks. Landon lunged forward, but I was ready. The taser in my purse connected with his chest, sending him sprawling. You really think this ends with us in handcuffs? Ryan hadn't moved, his calm more terrifying than Landon's aggression. We own this city, Neve. The media, the police, even your precious Mr. Collins. One phone call and what? You'll destroy me again? I turned to face him fully. Go ahead. But first, explain something. Why keep me around at all? Why not destroy me completely years ago? Something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty? Fear? Your family. No, I'm your shield. Your perfect cover story. The unstable sister makes the perfect brother look even better, doesn't she? You don't understand. I understand everything now. The adoption, the accident, the foundation. It's all about control. But you missed something, Ryan. You taught me too well. My phone buzzed. Maya's signal. Somewhere in the building, hard drives were being wiped, data transferred, evidence secured. What did you do? Landon groaned from the floor. Me? Nothing. I stepped over him toward the door. But in about 30 seconds, every major news outlet will receive proof of your involvement in your birth parents' death. Funny how karma works. Ryan's mask finally cracked. You're bluffing. Am I? You taught me everything about manipulation, remember? About playing the long game? I reached the doorway. Check your phone. They both grabbed their phones as headlines started flooding in. Ryan's face went ash white. You can't... Can't what? Destroy my family? Ruin someone's life? I smiled, feeling years of pain crystallize into something harder. Watch me. We'll destroy you. Landon snarled, struggling to his feet. You already tried that. My turn now. Ryan stepped toward me, desperation replacing his usual control. Neva, wait. We can fix this. Together, like real family. I paused in the doorway, thinking of all the years I'd wanted to hear those words. That's the difference between us, Ryan. I finally learned real family doesn't need fixing. As I walked away, their phones kept buzzing with notifications, each one another nail in their carefully constructed coffin. Tomorrow's press conference would still happen, but not the way they planned. Sometimes karma needs a little push, and I'd learned from the best how to make it hurt. The charity gala was my masterpiece of revenge, every detail calculated for maximum impact. Crystal champagne flutes caught the light just right, making the ballroom sparkle like broken glass. Perfect, considering what was about to shatter. Everything's ready, Maya whispered, sliding past with the tablet. Live stream connections confirmed. Press is in position. I nodded, watching Ryan work the crowd. He looked almost normal, as if last night's confrontation had never happened. Almost, except for the slight tremor in his hands as he lifted his glass. Quite the turnout. Mr. Collins appeared at my elbow. Though I'm surprised you're still running this event, given the circumstances. Professional obligation, I said, the words tasting bitter. Besides, the foundation's donors deserve to know where their money's really going. The lights dimmed right on schedule. Ryan took the stage, Landon hovering nearby like a well-dressed shadow. Thank you all for coming, Ryan began, his charm dialed to maximum. Tonight we celebrate. The screens behind him flickered to life. Not with the planned foundation video, but with security footage of Ryan meeting his birth parents. Audio crackled through the speakers. You can't threaten me. Ryan's recorded voice filled the room. I've worked too hard. The footage cut out. Every screen went black. Technical difficulties, Landon announced smoothly, but I was already moving toward the control room. Maya met me halfway. They've hijacked the system. Someone must have warned them. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your email. The attachment was a video. Security footage from my office last week. Me, meeting with Mr. Collins, discussing plans to expose Ryan. But the audio had been altered, making it sound like we were conspiring to embezzle from his company. Clever. Ryan's voice behind me made my blood freeze. Using my own tactics against me, but you forgot something crucial. The ballroom's screens came back to life, this time showing doctored footage of me accepting bribes, falsifying documents, all perfectly edited to seem real. What did you do? I whispered. Insurance policy. Landon appeared on my other side. Been collecting it for years, just in case. The room erupted in murmurs as more footage played. Years of carefully edited moments, all painting me as the corrupt one, the manipulator, the fraud. Miss Brooks, Mr. Collins's voice cut through the chaos. I think we need to discuss the terms of our arrangement. This isn't, I can explain. Save it for the authorities, he said coldly. They're very interested in these recordings. Security guards appeared at the doors, not the ones I'd hired, Ryan's people. Maya was nowhere in sight. You really thought you could beat me at my own game? Ryan's whisper was almost gentle. I invented these plays, Neve. Every move you made, I was 3 steps ahead. The birth parents were a trap. I knew Aunt Clara would tell you. Knew you'd try to use it. He smiled, that perfect practice smile. Thank you for being so predictable. The guards were moving through the crowd now. My phone buzzed again. Maya. They're blocking all outgoing communications. Can't upload the real evidence. You have a choice, Landon said quietly. Take the fall publicly, claim mental instability, or face federal charges. Either way, your reputation is finished. The room spun slightly. Everything I'd planned, every piece of evidence I'd gathered, all turned against me with surgical precision. Even the venue's security cameras were under their control, recording what would look like my public meltdown. Why? I managed. Why go to all this trouble? Because you needed to learn. Ryan's voice hardened. Family protects family. Cross that line and there are consequences. The guards were getting closer. My phone kept buzzing. Probably Maya trying to warn me, but it didn't matter now. Ryan had won. Again. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan addressed the crowd, his voice carrying perfectly. I'm afraid my sister has been struggling with some issues. Tonight's unfortunate display, I ran. Past the guards, through the kitchen, out into the cold night air. Behind me, I heard Ryan's voice on the speakers, spinning the story perfectly. The tragic tale of a jealous sister's mental breakdown. My phone lit up one last time. An email from my biggest client canceling all contracts. As I stood there, watching my career and reputation crumble in real time, I finally understood what Ryan had known all along. In the game of revenge, the winner isn't the one with the truth. It's the one who tells the better story. And my brother had just written my ending. 3 days after my public humiliation, I sat in my empty office, boxing up client files. The last remnants of my career, packed away in cardboard. My phone buzzed. Maya's 20th call today. This time, I answered. Turn on the news, she said without preamble. Now, I flicked on the small TV I used for event coverage. Ryan stood at a podium outside his foundation's headquarters, Landon by his side. In light of recent events, Ryan was saying, we're announcing an expansion of our charitable work. The new mental health initiative will help families dealing with... The screen went black. Then blue. Then filled with security footage. Not the doctored versions from the gala, but raw feeds. Ryan and Landon in their office discussing the manufactured scandal. Planning my downfall. Destroying evidence. What is this? I whispered into the phone. Remember Mr. Lee? Your neighbor with the obsessive security system? Maya's voice held a hint of triumph. Turns out he caught some interesting footage of Ryan and Landon breaking into your office last week to plant evidence. A pounding on my office door made me jump. Through the frosted glass, I saw Ryan's silhouette. They can't stop the feed, Maya continued. It's going to every major network, social media platform, and news outlet simultaneously. I'll call you back. The door burst open. Ryan's perfect facade had cracked completely, his face twisted with rage. Where is it? He demanded. The server controlling the broadcast. I don't know what you're talking about. I stood slowly, my hand sliding into my desk drawer where the final piece of evidence waited. Having technical difficulties with your press conference? This is your last chance. Landon appeared behind him, phone in hand. Our IT team can trace the source. To where? Maya's network of proxy servers? Good luck. I pulled out a USB drive. Looking for this? Ryan lunged forward, but I was ready. Careful, brother. One wrong move and every financial record, every doctored document, every secret you've buried goes public, including the real story about your birth parents. You're bluffing. But his voice wavered. We destroyed everything. Did you? Or did you destroy what you thought was everything? I smiled, channeling his own practice charm. You taught me well, remember? Always have a backup plan. We'll recover, Landon said, but he was watching the TV where more damning footage played. We always do. Not this time. I held up my phone, showing them the incoming messages. Mr. Collins sends his regards. Seems he doesn't appreciate being manipulated. The FBI is very interested in his statement. Ryan's mask cracked completely. You don't understand what you've done. The people we owe money to? The ones you were paying off with charity funds? I stepped closer. Maybe you should have thought about that before you tried to destroy me. Again. We're family. He tried, desperation replacing manipulation. No, Ryan, we're not. We never were. I tossed the USB drive to Landon. That's blank, by the way. The real files went live an hour ago. The sound of sirens filtered through my office windows. Ryan's phone buzzed continuously. Probably his lawyers, his investors, his carefully cultivated network all abandoning ship. You could have had everything, he said quietly. If you just played your role. That was your mistake, I replied, thinking I was still playing a role. The sirens grew louder. Landon grabbed Ryan's arm. We need to go, now. It won't stick, Ryan said, but his confidence was gone. We'll find a way to spin this. Goodbye, Ryan. I sat back down at my desk, starting to unpack the boxes. Give my regards to our parents. I'm sure they'll find a way to blame this on me too. They fled as red and blue lights filled the windows. I watched them go, feeling strangely empty. On TV, their carefully constructed world continued to unravel in high definition. My phone buzzed. Mr. Collins. My wife's 50th birthday still needs planning, if you're interested. Then Maya. Need help unpacking those boxes? I looked around my office at the career I'd built, lost and reclaimed. At the evidence of a life lived in someone else's shadow, now finally stepping into the light. Actually, I texted back, I think it's time for a renovation. Outside, karma was finally catching up with Ryan and Landon. But inside, for the first time in my life, I felt free of their shadow. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world, it's about rebuilding your own. The Collins anniversary celebration sparkled with understated elegance. My first major event since Ryan's arrest. No crystal champagne flutes this time. Sometimes simple wine glasses tell a better story. Perfect, as always, Mr. Collins said, watching his wife laugh with guests. Though I admit I had doubts after everything. So did I admitted, adjusting a centerpiece. The newspaper on my desk that morning had featured Ryan and Landon's sentencing. 5 to 7 years, plus restitution to their victims. My phone buzzed. Aunt Clara. Your parents want to meet. To explain. I slipped the phone away unanswered. Some explanations came too late. Miss Brooks? Sophie, the venue owner, approached with a tablet. There's someone asking to see you. Says it's urgent. In the venue's office, Landon's sister waited. She looked smaller somehow, without her brother's shadow looming nearby. I found this. She held out a worn envelope, while clearing out their office. Inside was a photograph I'd never seen. Ryan, maybe 7 years old, holding a baby. Me. On the back, in unfamiliar handwriting. My children, finally together. It was in their birth mother's diary. Landon's sister said quietly. She wanted to adopt you too, but your parents wouldn't give you up. Ryan knew. All these years he knew you were supposed to be his real sister. The photo trembled in my hands. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know why he couldn't let you go. Why he had to control everything. She stood to leave. He loved you, in his way. He just didn't know how to love without owning. Through the office window, I watched the party continue. Dozens of people celebrating love that had lasted through decades of choices, mistakes, and forgiveness. Tell him, I said finally. I hope he finds what he's looking for. Back in the ballroom, Maya intercepted me. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have. I handed her the photo. Add it to the archive? She nodded, understanding. We'd been documenting everything, not for revenge anymore, but for truth. Sometimes healing started with having proof that your pain was real. Neve? Mr. Collins called out. We're ready for the toast. I moved through the crowd, past faces that had once witnessed my humiliation at Ryan's gala, now smiling with genuine warmth. Amazing how quickly people forgot old scandals when new ones emerged. The microphone felt different in my hand this time. No revenge to orchestrate, no lies to expose. Just a moment to celebrate something real. To love that endures. I raised my simple wine glass. And to the families we choose. Later, as the last guests departed, I found the photo on my desk. Maya had added a sticky note. Some stories don't need an ending to be over. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Aunt Clara. He asked about you today, said he's sorry. I thought about Ryan sitting in his cell, finally facing a truth he couldn't manipulate. About Landon, separated from his partner in crime, learning what loyalty really meant. About our parents, left to question every choice that led to this moment. The venue's lights dimmed automatically, leaving me in comfortable shadow. I picked up the photo, studying the joy on young Ryan's face as he held his baby sister. The promise of what could have been. I didn't tear it up. Didn't file it away with the evidence. Instead, I left it on Sophie's desk with a note. For your wall of memories. Sometimes the best stories are the ones we choose not to finish. Outside, the night air carried the scent of approaching rain. Maya waited by her car. Ready to go? The team's waiting to celebrate. I looked back at the venue one last time. At the simple elegance that had replaced crystal perfection. At the honest success built from the ashes of revenge. Actually, I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. I think I'll walk. Sometimes the heaviest shadows are the ones we choose to carry, and sometimes letting them go is the sweetest revenge of all. I stepped into the night, leaving the photo and its unfinished story behind. Ahead, the city lights beckoned with possibilities that had nothing to do with the past. It was time to plan something new.
The pregnancy test glowed positive in my trembling hands, a tiny window to my future that should have brought pure joy. Instead, my phone buzzed with another anonymous message. You don't deserve this baby. You'll never be good enough for this family. I'm Lila, and until 3 months ago, my life was beautifully ordinary. The local library where I worked had just promoted me to head of children's services. My husband Ryan and I had finally started trying for a baby. Even my mother-in-law Donna seemed to be easing up on her constant hints about grandchildren. Have you taken it yet? Ryan called through the bathroom door. Just give me a minute. I slipped the test into my pocket and deleted the message, adding it to the growing collection I hadn't told him about. The first one arrived the day after we announced we were trying for a baby. I opened the door to find Ryan's eager face. His blue eyes searched mine, hope radiating from every pore. Well? It's positive. I forced a smile, letting him sweep me into his arms. Over his shoulder, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Pale, strained, nothing like the glowing mother-to-be I should have been. Mom's going to flip, he laughed, already reaching for his phone. Wait. I grabbed his wrist. Can we just keep it between us for a while? His face fell slightly. She's been waiting for this forever, Lila. You know how important family is to her. That's exactly what worried me. Donna's version of family came with conditions, expectations, and judgment wrapped in sugary smiles. The messages started after our last dinner with her, where she'd cornered me in the kitchen. A mother's love is fierce, she'd said, arranging cookies on a plate with surgical precision. We do whatever it takes to protect our children. Remember that, dear. My phone buzzed again. Ryan was already calling his mother, his voice echoing through our small house. I checked the message. You think you can handle motherhood? Wait until everyone knows what you really are. Lila? Ryan's voice snapped me back. Mom wants to take us to dinner tonight to celebrate. I haven't even made a doctor's appointment yet, I protested weakly. She's already at that new French place downtown. Says she had a feeling today was special. He beamed, completely missing my discomfort. The restaurant was exactly Donna's style, all crystal chandeliers and starched tablecloths. She stood when we arrived, perfectly coiffed in her nurse's uniform. I just got off shift, she explained, hugging Ryan tight before turning to me. Lila, darling, you're looking tired. Working hard, I mumbled, sliding into my seat. Well, that will have to change now, won't it? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. A mother's first priority is her child. My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it. Have you thought about taking a break from the library? Donna continued. The first trimester is so delicate. All that dust and those germy children. Mom! Ryan warned, but she waved him off. I'm just concerned. After what happened with Ryan's sister, Donna! I cut in sharply. We never discussed Sarah's miscarriage. It was an unspoken rule. The waiter arrived with champagne. Just sparkling cider for the mother-to-be, Donna trilled, and I excused myself to the bathroom. 3 new messages waited. Ask her about Sarah. Ask her what really happened. Ask her what she did. I stared at my phone, ice creeping through my veins. Only family knew about Sarah. Only family knew what happened 15 years ago when Donna was still working as a labor and delivery nurse. When I returned to the table, Donna was showing Ryan baby pictures on her phone. "You were such a perfect baby," she cooed. "We'll have to make sure everything is just as perfect this time." Her eyes met mine, and in that moment, I knew. The messages, the threats, the timing, it all led back to her. My mother-in-law was declaring war, and my baby was the battlefield. I smiled back, my hand protectively covering my stomach. Game on, Donna. Game on. The first ultrasound photo sat between Ryan and me at breakfast like a loaded gun. 3 sets of copies, one for us, one for the doctor's office, and one Donna had already claimed as her right. "She's redecorating the guest room," Ryan said, stirring his coffee. "Says it'll make the perfect nursery when we visit." I gripped my fork tighter. "We live 15 minutes away. Why would we need a nursery at her house?" "Mom just wants to be involved." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away to check my phone. Another message waited. "Mothers know best. Always have, always will." The cafe next door chimed its morning bell. Through the window, I watched Mike arrange his sidewalk tables, his movements precise and practiced. He caught my eye and waved, concern creasing his weathered face. I'd been avoiding his usual morning chats lately, unsure how much my face might betray. "I need to set some boundaries with your mother," I said carefully. Ryan's spoon clinked against his cup. "What kind of boundaries?" "She called my supervisor yesterday, tried to convince her I needed medical leave immediately." The memory made my jaw clench. Said the library environment wasn't safe for her grandchild. "She means well." "She's suffocating me." The words exploded louder than intended. Outside, Mike glanced our way again. Ryan pushed back from the table. "You're being dramatic. This pregnancy has you emotional." "Don't." I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. "Don't you dare dismiss this as hormones." "Then what is it?" "Because lately you jump every time your phone buzzes. You barely sleep. You won't let Mom help with anything." "Help? Is that what you call this?" I thrust my phone at him, opening the message thread. His eyes scanned the screen, brow furrowing. "These are all from unknown numbers. Could be anyone." "Read the one about Sarah." His face went slack. "How? Who would know about that?" "Think, Ryan. Who's been obsessing over this pregnancy? Who worked at the hospital when Sarah lost her baby? Who keeps talking about making everything perfect this time?" "You can't seriously think, my mother." The doorbell rang. We both froze. "Surprise!" Donna's voice carried through the house. "I brought nursery paint samples." Ryan shot me a warning look before calling out, "In the kitchen, Mom!" She breezed in, arms full of color swatches and fabric samples. Her nurse's uniform was immaculate as always, but something wild danced behind her eyes. "I was thinking soft greens," she said, spreading everything across our breakfast table. "So much more soothing than traditional pink or blue. We want everything calm and peaceful this time, don't we?" My phone buzzed. Without looking, I knew another message waited. "Actually," I said, standing straighter, "we're not making any nursery decisions yet. It's too early." Donna's smile tightened. "Nonsense. The first trimester is crucial for planning. Everything needs to be perfect before—" "Before what?" I challenged. "Before something goes wrong?" "Lila," Ryan warned. "No, I want to know." "Before what, Donna?" She gathered her samples with trembling hands. "I only want what's best for my grandchild. Some people aren't natural mothers. They need guidance." "Like Sarah needed guidance?" The color drained from her face. Ryan grabbed my arm, but I shook him off. "Get out," I said quietly, "and stop sending me messages." "Messages?" She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Ryan, sweetheart, I think the pregnancy is affecting her judgment. Perhaps she should see someone." "I said get out!" Donna stepped back, clutching her samples to her chest. "Ryan, you can't let her continue like this. Remember what Dr. Stevens said about stress during pregnancy? About how it can lead to complications?" My blood ran cold. Dr. Stevens was my new obstetrician. I hadn't told anyone his name yet. How did you? I started, but Donna was already heading for the door. Just think about the paint samples, dear, she called back. Green is so soothing, so safe. After she left, Ryan wouldn't meet my eyes. I'll talk to her, he mumbled. She'll back off. But we both knew better. My phone buzzed one final time. Green walls won't save you. Ask Sarah about the nursery she never got to use. Mike's cafe became my refuge when the library felt too exposed. He never asked questions, just slid herbal tea across the counter and kept his voice low enough that conversations stayed private. Today, my best friend Zoe sat across from me, scrolling through the messages on my phone, her face growing darker with each swipe. "This is straight-up stalking," she said, pushing the phone back. "You need to show these to the police." "And tell them what? That my mother-in-law might be sending anonymous threats?" I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. "Ryan already thinks I'm paranoid." Speaking of Ryan, Mike appeared with fresh scones, his eyes darting to the window. Through the glass, I saw Ryan's mother approaching the cafe, still in her nurse's uniform. "Back door," Mike muttered, already moving to intercept her. Zoe and I slipped through the kitchen just as the bell chimed. Donna's voice carried through the walls. "Have you seen my daughter-in-law? She's missed 2 prenatal vitamins appointments I scheduled." In the alley, I leaned against the brick wall, pulse racing. "She's tracking my medical appointments now." "Time to see someone professional," Zoe insisted. "I know a therapist." "I don't need therapy. I need proof." My phone buzzed with a new message. "Running away won't protect the baby. Remember what happened when Sarah tried to hide?" "What happened to Sarah?" Zoe asked, reading over my shoulder. "Ryan's sister. She lost her baby 15 years ago when Donna was still working as a labor nurse. Nobody talks about it." "Mrs. Reynolds might know something," Zoe said. "She volunteers at the hospital archives." An hour later, we sat in Mrs. Reynolds's cramped office, surrounded by filing cabinets. She adjusted her glasses, frowning at the computer screen. "There was an investigation," she said finally. "Internal review of the maternity ward. Several incidents of unauthorized interventions in high-risk pregnancies." "What kind of interventions?" Or records are sealed. But one nurse was suspended pending review. She resigned before." Mrs. Reynolds stopped, squinting at the screen. "That's odd. The files have been accessed recently, multiple times from the hospital's internal system." My phone buzzed again. "Digging up the past? Careful where you step. Some graves should stay buried." I showed Mrs. Reynolds the message. Her face paled. "Get out of here, now, and watch your back." That evening, I found Ryan in his home office, surrounded by old photo albums. "Mom dropped these off," he said without looking up. "Said we should learn from family history." I picked up a photo. Sarah, heavily pregnant, looking anxiously over her shoulder. Behind her, barely visible in the background, stood Donna, watching. "She was 8 months along," Ryan said softly. "Everything was fine until..." "Until what?" "Mom was on shift that night. Said Sarah was showing signs of distress. She made the call to induce early. Something went wrong. The baby..." He closed the album. "Mom never forgave herself." "Or Sarah," I added. "Where is she now?" "Nobody knows. She left town right after. Mom says the grief broke her." My phone lit up. "Sarah knew too much. Don't make her mistakes." Ryan saw the message. "This has to stop. I'm calling Mom." Don't!" I grabbed his arm. "Think about it. The messages started when we announced the pregnancy. They mentioned Sarah, your mother's shifts, my doctor's appointments. Who else could know all that? You're saying my mother drove her own daughter away? That she's threatening you now?" He stood up, shaking his head. "Listen to yourself." I did some digging. There was an investigation at the hospital before she resigned. Something about unauthorized interventions in pregnancies. "Enough!" He slammed his hand on the desk. "You need help, Lila. Professional help. Mom's right. This stress isn't good for the baby." "Your mother's right?" "Of course. She's always right, isn't she? Just like she was right about Sarah's baby." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Ryan picked up his keys. "I'm staying at Mom's tonight. Call me when you're ready to get help." After he left, one final message arrived with an old newspaper clipping. Sarah's story: local woman questions hospital procedures in late-term loss. The article was incomplete, but one quote stood out. "Someone deliberately interfered. They thought they knew what was best." I touched my stomach, feeling the first flutter of movement. "It's okay," I whispered. "I won't let history repeat itself." My phone buzzed. "Too late. History always repeats. Ask Dr. Stevens about his new orders for your care." Dr. Stevens' office felt different today. The same bland walls, the same medical posters, but now I noticed the fresh flowers on his desk, identical to the ones Donna always kept in her kitchen. "Your mother-in-law has expressed concerns," he said, reviewing my chart. "Given your family's history of complications." "What family history?" I kept my voice steady, though my nails dug into my palms. "I've never had complications." "Ah!" He shifted uncomfortably. "I meant your husband's family, the incident with Sarah. Who told you about Sarah?" Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then quickly turned it face down. "I'm recommending bed rest, immediate medical leave from work." Just like Donna wanted, I left without taking his prescription, my phone already buzzing with a new message. "Doctor's orders, for the baby's sake." Zoe was waiting in her car outside. "Well? We need to move faster." I showed her the message. "She's got the doctor in her pocket now." "I might have something." Zoe pulled out her laptop. "Remember that hospital investigation? I found Sarah." My heart stopped. "Where?" "Portland. She's a social worker now, specializing in maternal trauma cases." Zoe turned the screen toward me, showing a professional headshot. Sarah's eyes held the same haunted look I'd seen in the old photo. "She's giving a talk next week about medical abuse in pregnancy care." "Book me a ticket." "Already did." "But Lila," Zoe hesitated. "What if Ryan's right? What if we're seeing connections that aren't—" My phone chimed with another message. This time, it was a photo of Sarah's speaking engagement poster, crossed out in red. Below it, "History doesn't just repeat, it teaches lessons." I showed Zoe. "Still think I'm imagining things?" That night, I packed quietly while Ryan slept at his mother's. A soft knock at the door made me freeze. "It's Mike," a voice whispered. I opened the door to find my neighbor looking grave. "Donna was asking questions at the cafe today. About your schedule, your friends. She seemed different. Agitated." "Did she mention Sarah?" "No, but—" He glanced over his shoulder. "She was making calls about flight bookings to Portland." My phone lit up. "Running to Big Sister won't save you, or the baby." "I need a favor," I told Mike. "If anyone asks, I'm taking a few days off for bed rest. Doctor's orders." He nodded, understanding. "Be careful, Lila. Something's not right with that woman." Later, reviewing Sarah's social media, I found a pattern. Every few months, comments appeared from anonymous accounts. "Remember what happens to mothers who don't listen." Some mistakes can't be fixed. Each post was followed by Sarah going offline for weeks. A new message arrived. "Telling tales out of school? Tisk, tisk." Sarah learned the hard way about loyalty. I typed back for the first time. "What did you do to her baby?" The response came instantly. "What any good mother would do, protected the family, like I'm protecting yours." My hands shook as I dialed Ryan's number. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. "He's sleeping," Donna's voice answered. "Dr. Stevens prescribed him something for the stress. Poor boy's worried sick about you." "What did you give him?" "Just looking after my son, like I looked after Sarah, like I'll look after your baby. Stay away from my family." "Oh, sweetheart." Her laugh sent chills down my spine. "We are family. That's why I have to make sure everything's perfect this time. No mistakes, no disobedience, no running away." I ended the call and dialed Zoe. "Change of plans. We leave tonight." "What about Ryan?" I touched my stomach, feeling the baby move. She's drugging him, like she probably drugged Sarah. I can't wait any longer. Lila, Zoe's voice dropped. Someone's watching your house. Black car, been there an hour. My phone buzzed one last time. Mothers know best. Always have, always will. Sweet dreams, dear daughter. I grabbed my bag, heading for the back door. It was time to find Sarah and end this, before Donna's version of perfect destroyed another family. The porch light flickered as I stepped out. In the shadows, a figure moved. Going somewhere? Donna asked softly. Without saying goodbye? The community center buzzed with excitement for the annual Pregnancy Wellness Fair. My display about children's literacy stood half-finished as I watched Donna work the room, her nurse's uniform pristine, her smile razor-sharp. She'd arranged this event, of course, the perfect stage for her performance. Everyone's so excited about your presentation, Zoe whispered, helping me arrange books. Are you sure about this? I touched the USB drive in my pocket containing Sarah's medical records. One PowerPoint slide was all it would take to expose Donna's past. It's time people knew the truth. Lila! Donna's voice carried across the room. Darling, you look flushed. Perhaps you should sit down. Before I could respond, Ryan appeared at my side. Mom's right. You don't look well. I'm fine. But the room did seem warmer, my vision slightly blurred. The water bottle Donna had insisted I drink sat half empty on the table. My phone buzzed. Mothers know when their children need rest. The text was from an unknown number, but the message next to it caught my eye. A notification that my presentation file had been altered 10 minutes ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Donna announced to the gathering crowd. Before my daughter-in-law's presentation, I have some concerns to share about maternal stress and its effects on pregnancy. I grabbed my laptop, but the screen swam before my eyes. The PowerPoint file opened to reveal not my carefully prepared exposé, but photos of me, following Dr. Stevens, digging through hospital records, meeting secretly with Zoe. The final slide showed my recent browser history, Sarah Morrison death records, pregnancy complications, suspicious deaths, how to prove medical malpractice. As you can see, Donna's voice seemed to echo. Sometimes the stress of pregnancy can lead to paranoid delusions, obsessive behavior, even dangerous accusations. The room spun. I clutched the podium as whispers rippled through the crowd. Ryan stared at the screen, his face pale. My own daughter, Sarah, suffered similar delusions, Donna continued, her voice thick with manufactured concern. She too made wild accusations. Tragic, how pregnancy hormones can affect the mind. Sarah's not dead, I managed to say, but my tongue felt heavy. She's in Portland. She knows what you did. Gasps from the audience. Ryan grabbed my arm. Lila, stop! You're not well! Ask her about the hospital investigation, I said louder, fighting the growing fog in my head. Ask her why she resigned. Ask her about the other mothers. Security? Donna called softly. I believe we need assistance. My daughter-in-law is having an episode. Through blurring vision, I saw Mike push through the crowd, his cafe apron still on. He'd seen the whole thing. He knew the truth. But when he reached me, his eyes were full of pity. Don't you see what she's doing? I pleaded to the shocked faces around me. She's trying to discredit me, like she did to Sarah, like she does to anyone who threatens her control. Shh, Ryan soothed, leading me away from the podium. We'll get you help. Mom knows a great facility. No! I wrenched away, stumbling. My phone clattered to the floor, screen lighting up with one final message. Perfect mothers know how to protect their children. From anything or anyone. The room tilted. As darkness crept in at the edges of my vision, I saw Donna approach with what looked like a medical bag. Her smile never wavered. Don't worry, dear, she whispered. I'll take care of everything, just like I always do. The last thing I heard was Ryan's voice, thick with worry. Mom, what was in that water bottle? Just something to help her rest, sweetheart. Trust, Mother. I know what's best. As consciousness faded, I realized my mistake. I'd tried to beat Donna at her own game, but she'd been playing a different one all along. This wasn't about exposing the truth. This was about making sure no one would ever believe it. The darkness took me, but not before I heard Donna's final words to the murmuring crowd. Sometimes the greatest act of love is protecting someone from themselves. Isn't that right, Sarah? Through the haze, I thought I saw a familiar face in the back of the room. A woman with haunted eyes, watching silently. Then nothing. The psychiatric facility's walls were the same shade of green Donna had chosen for the nursery. 3 days since the episode at the wellness fair, and already the world had shifted on its axis. I sat in the common room, watching other patients shuffle past in identical robes, wondering how many of them had also crossed paths with women like Donna. "Your husband's here," the nurse announced. Not my nurse. Donna had made sure to get herself assigned to my case, but she was mysteriously absent today. Ryan looked exhausted, his suit wrinkled. "The doctor says you're not taking your medication." "Because I'm not sick." I kept my voice steady, remembering Dr. Emily's warning about appearing too emotional. "Where's your mother?" "Called away for an emergency at her old hospital." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Something about old records being requested." My heart jumped. Sarah, it had to be. The woman I'd glimpsed at the fair wasn't a hallucination. "Have you checked your phone?" I asked carefully. "Any strange messages?" "Mom took my phone. Said I needed space to process." He rubbed his face. "The things you said at the fair, about Sarah. Mom finally told me everything. The delusions, the accusations, how she tried to hurt herself." "That's not what happened." I leaned forward. "Sarah's alive. She's in Portland. She's trying to expose what your mother did." "Stop!" Ryan stood up. "Just stop. Please take the medication, for the baby's sake." After he left, I noticed a folded paper had fallen from his pocket. A hospital form, partially visible. "Request for guardian ad litem, Unborn Child Protection Act." My hands shook as I read. Donna was seeking legal guardianship of my unborn child. "Quite a bind you're in." The voice came from behind me, an elderly patient I'd seen in group therapy. "Reminds me of my daughter-in-law, always making wild claims about my parenting. Until the accident, of course." I turned slowly. The woman's smile was familiar. Her eyes held the same calculated warmth as Donna's. "You're Helen Crawford," I whispered. The name from the hospital records, another nurse who'd resigned during the investigation. "Donna said you were clever." She sat beside me. "We worked so well together, protecting mothers from themselves. Sometimes love requires intervention." My phone privileges had been revoked, but I'd memorized Zoe's number. At the patient phones, I dialed with trembling fingers. "Zoe's away," Mike's voice answered. "Left town suddenly. Something about a graphic design emergency in Portland." Relief flooded through me. She'd gone to find Sarah. "Tell her," I started, but Helen appeared beside me. "Time for group," she said pleasantly. "We're discussing maternal instincts today." In group therapy, Helen led the session. Each story followed the same pattern: difficult daughters-in-law, necessary interventions, tragic accidents. The other patients nodded sympathetically, but their eyes were vacant, medicated. Back in my room, I found a new message scratched into my bedside table. "Sarah says hello. Better take your medicine." That night, Donna returned for her shift. She hummed as she prepared my injection. "Sarah's quite upset about your accusations. Had to be sedated again. Such a shame." "You found her. I always know where my children are." She smiled. "Now this might pinch a bit." I backed away. "The baby will be perfectly safe with me, just like you will be once you accept my help." Her voice hardened. "Don't fight it, Lila. Look around. No one believes you. Even Ryan signed the guardianship papers." "Why? Why do this?" "Because mothers know best. Always." She advanced with the needle. "Sarah learned that. Helen's daughter-in-law learned that. And you will too." A commotion erupted in the hallway. Donna turned, annoyed at the interruption. "Mrs. Stevens?" a nurse called. "Emergency call from Portland." Donna's face tightened. "Give me 5 minutes to finish here. It's about Sarah. She's gone public." The needle clattered to the floor. For the first time, I saw real fear in Donna's eyes. But as she hurried out, she paused at the door. Mothers protect their children, Lila. Whatever it takes. Remember that when you wake up. I glanced at my water cup, understanding too late why it tasted bitter. As darkness crept in, I saw Helen enter the room, picking up the fallen needle. Sweet dreams, dear, she cooed. Don't worry, we'll take good care of both of you. The last thing I heard was Donna's voice down the hall. Find Sarah, now! The hospital chapel smelled of stale incense and secrets. Donna knelt in the front pew, her nurse's uniform replaced by a simple black dress. She didn't turn when I entered, though her shoulders tensed. Sarah's press conference starts in an hour, I said, my voice echoing off stone walls. Funny timing, you being here. Mothers always return to the scene of their greatest sacrifices. She remained facing the altar. Did you know I lost my first child here? 3rd trimester? The nurses were incompetent. Is that why you became one? To do better? To do what's necessary? She finally turned. How did you get out? Helen's not as careful as you. She talks in her sleep. I touched my stomach, still queasy from the drugs, especially about what happened to her daughter-in-law. A smile flickered across Donna's face. You've grown stronger. Good. The baby needs a strong mother. Like Sarah was strong? Sarah was weak. She wouldn't listen, wouldn't understand that sometimes love means making impossible choices. Donna stood, smoothing her dress. But you're different. You fight back, like I did. Through the stained glass, red light painted her face like blood. My phone buzzed, Zoe's signal that Sarah was ready. Tell me about your first baby, I said softly. The one you lost. Something cracked in Donna's expression. The nurses, they said I was too controlling, that my anxiety was hurting the baby. They sedated me. When I woke up, her hands clenched. I promised myself no mother would ever feel that helpless again. So you became the one in control, deciding which mothers were worthy, which babies needed protection. I stepped closer. How many, Donna? How many families did you destroy? I saved them! Her composure shattered. Weak mothers make weak children. Sarah didn't understand that. She would have ruined my grandchild with her softness, just like you would ruin yours. Sarah's baby didn't die, did it? The truth hit like lightning. You took it. Donna's laugh was hollow. Adopted, officially. A lovely couple in Portland. Sarah was declared unfit. Postpartum psychosis, they called it. The same diagnosis you have, dear. My phone buzzed again. In 15 minutes, Sarah would tell her story to the world. But there was one piece missing. Where are the records? I asked. The real ones, not the falsified versions. Safe. Unlike you. She reached into her purse. I had such hopes, Lila. We could have been perfect together, but you're just like Sarah, too stubborn to accept help. The syringe caught the red light. The baby will be better off without your influence. Ryan understands that now. Does he understand this? I held up my phone, playing the recording of her confession. Or should I forward it to the press first? Her hand trembled. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I touched my stomach again. I learned from the best, after all. Mothers do whatever it takes, right? She lunged with the syringe. I sidestepped, letting her momentum carry her past me. She stumbled, catching herself on the altar. It's over, Donna. Sarah's alive. Her baby's alive. And everyone's about to know what you did. No. She straightened, something feral in her eyes. No one will believe you. You're just another unstable mother, like Sarah, like all the others. Except I'm not alone. The chapel doors opened. Ryan stood there, his face ashen, holding his phone. Behind him, Helen waited in handcuffs, flanked by police. Mom! Ryan's voice cracked. What did you do to Sarah? Donna's mask crumbled completely. I protected our family. Everything I did was for... Save it for the press conference, I cut in. Sarah's waiting to reunite with her child. Your perfect family is about to get very public. As they led her away, Donna turned back one last time. "You'll understand someday," she whispered. "When the baby comes. Sometimes love looks like madness." I watched her disappear into the red light, one hand on my stomach, the other holding Ryan's trembling fingers. "I already understand," I murmured. "Love looks like truth." The courtroom emptied slowly, leaving behind the hollow echo of justice served. 15 years of Donna's crimes laid bare, each victim's story more haunting than the last. Sarah sat 2 rows behind me, clutching her teenage son's hand, a boy with Ryan's eyes and her quiet strength. Mike appeared with coffee from his cafe. "Thought you might need this. Thanks." I watched Ryan lingering by the prosecutor's table, shuffling papers that didn't need shuffling. "Did you read it?" "The letter?" "Yeah." He settled beside me. Donna always did have perfect handwriting. The envelope had arrived this morning, just before sentencing. Inside, a single page held more truth than months of testimony. Perfect mothers don't exist. I see that now. We're all just echoes of our own wounds, trying not to pass them down. Take care of our grandchild, Lila. Love them better than I knew how. "She's being transferred tonight," Ryan said, finally joining us. His tie hung loose, defeat etched in every line of his face. "Mom asked to see the baby first." "No." The word came automatically, my hand covering my stomach. "Just once. Before what? Before she finds another way to control us?" The baby kicked, as if in agreement. "Some wounds don't deserve second chances." Sarah approached, her son hovering protectively nearby. "She wants to see my Jack, too. Says she needs closure." "What did you tell her?" "That closure isn't always a gift we give others." Sarah's smile held years of hard-won wisdom. "Sometimes it's a door we close ourselves." Through the courthouse windows, reporters gathered on the steps, hungry for the story of the nurse who stole babies in the name of perfect motherhood. Helen had already pleaded guilty, trading testimony for a lighter sentence. 3 more former nurses had come forward, confessing to similar crimes at other hospitals. "I should feel something more," Ryan said quietly. "Anger, relief, something." "You feel what you feel," I replied, remembering Dr. Emily's words about healing. "That's enough." My phone buzzed, not with threatening messages now, but with updates from the survivors group Sarah had started. Women sharing stories, breaking silences, reclaiming their power one truth at a time. "Ready?" Zoe waited by the door, camera in hand. The documentary was her idea, a record of recovery, not revenge. "Almost." I turned to Ryan. "Your mother's letter, she wrote something else, about her first baby." He stiffened. "What?" "There was no baby. The pregnancy was a lie she told herself so long, it became her truth. Everything else, Sarah, the other mothers, me, it all stemmed from that first deception." "How can you be sure?" "Because perfect mothers don't exist," I echoed Donna's words, "but perfect lies do." Outside, Sarah hugged her son close, whispering something that made him smile. 15 years of separation hadn't broken their bond. It had transformed it into something stronger, more resilient. "I've been thinking about names," Ryan said suddenly. "For the baby." "Not Sarah," I said quickly. "Or Donna." "No." He took my hand. "Something new. Something that's just ours." The baby kicked again as we descended the courthouse steps. Reporters called out questions. Cameras flashed, but their voices seemed distant, unimportant. In my pocket, Donna's letter crinkled, her last attempt at controlling the narrative. But our story wasn't hers to write anymore. It belonged to Sarah's quiet strength, to Ryan's painful growth, to the child growing beneath my heart, who would never know the weight of perfect expectations. "One last thing," I told the others. Taking out the letter, I ripped it slowly, deliberately, letting the pieces scatter like confetti on the courthouse steps. Sarah nodded, understanding. Her son squeezed her hand. "Some mothers protect," I said, watching the paper fragments dance away. Others control. The trick is knowing the difference. The setting sun painted the courthouse gold, transforming the scene into something almost beautiful. Not perfect, never perfect, but real. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.
The crystal flutes clinked with practiced precision as Father raised his glass, commanding attention from the 200 guests packed into our mansion's grand ballroom. His perfectly tailored Armani suit matched his perfectly crafted smile, both designed to hide what lurked beneath. I'm Chelsea, and this was the moment my family's carefully constructed facade began to crack. To Stewart Pharmaceuticals, Father announced, his voice carrying that signature authority that had closed billion-dollar deals. 25 years of saving lives, and to the next generation who will carry this legacy forward. His eyes found mine first, then shifted to my brother Ryan, who stood rigid beside me. I felt his hand trembling as he gripped his champagne glass. "Don't," I whispered, but I already knew it was too late. "I have something to say." Ryan's voice cracked through the murmuring crowd. Father's smile froze, a microscopic twitch in his left eye betraying his rage at the interruption. "I'm leaving the company." The words fell like bombs in the silent room. "I can't be part of an organization that puts profits over planet. Our manufacturing processes are destroying ecosystems, and I won't." "That's enough." Father's voice cut through the air like a blade. "We'll discuss this privately." "No." Ryan stood straighter, his voice stronger. "I'm done with private discussions that lead nowhere. I'm joining environmental defense tomorrow. The world needs to know." The crack of Father's hand against Ryan's face echoed through the ballroom. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My Aunt Sophie's lips curved into a slight smile, while her son Tom leaned forward, drinking in the spectacle. "Security." Father's voice was deadly calm. "Please escort my son out." "Mark." Mother stepped forward, her designer dress rustling. "Please, not like this." "Be quiet, Lily." Father didn't even look at her. His eyes locked onto mine as 2 security guards led Ryan away. "Chelsea, my office. Now." I followed him through the maze of whispers and stares, past the imported marble columns and priceless art that decorated our home. The click of my heels against hardwood felt like a countdown to execution. His office door closed behind us with a soft click that somehow sounded more final than a slam. "You knew about this." It wasn't a question. "Ryan has his own mind, his own beliefs, which you encouraged." He moved behind his desk, every motion controlled. "Did you think I wouldn't notice the environmental books, the meetings with activists, the way you defended his ridiculous ideas at board meetings? They're not ridiculous. He's right about... He's a child playing at rebellion." Father's fist crashed onto his desk. "And you're supposed to be the responsible one, the heir. Instead, you've been undermining everything I've built." "Built on what?" The words escaped before I could stop them. "On buried research? On silenced whistleblowers? On reality," he snarled. "On understanding that progress requires sacrifice. Your brother chose his path tonight. Now you choose yours. Either you step up and become who you were born to be, or you follow him out that door. But understand this, there's no middle ground anymore." I stared at him. This titan of industry, this pillar of society, this stranger wearing my father's face. In his eyes, I saw the truth I'd been avoiding. Love was conditional, family was business, and power was the only currency that mattered. "Well?" He straightened his tie, already composing himself to return to the gala. "What's it going to be?" I opened my mouth to answer, but my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "I'm sorry, but I had to do it. Check your email. You need to see what I found in the Phase 3 trials." Father's eyes narrowed at my screen. "Choose carefully, Chelsea. Everything you are, everything you have, it all comes from me." I looked up at him, suddenly seeing with perfect clarity the choice before me, his truth or mine. 3 days after Ryan's exile, I sat in Father's executive boardroom, surrounded by men twice my age who treated every word from his mouth like gospel. The morning sun caught the edge of my coffee cup, still untouched, while Father's presentation on quarterly projections droned on. "The Phase 3 trials for Neuroxin show promising results," he announced, clicking through slides of charts and graphs. "Chelsea will oversee the final stages of testing." My head snapped up. Across the table, Tom's jaw tightened, his knuckles white around his pen. "Uncle Mark," he interrupted, "given my experience with the previous trials, Chelsea has the necessary qualifications." Father cut him off. And more importantly, my trust. The words hung there, a calculated display of favoritism that made my skin crawl. I knew what this was, punishment for Tom's support of Ryan at the gala, Father's way of tightening the leash on us all. The meeting dragged on, but my mind kept returning to Ryan's text about those trials. The email he'd mentioned still sat unopened in my inbox, like a loaded gun I wasn't ready to handle. Chelsea, Father's voice pulled me back. The room had emptied except for us. The tech conference in San Francisco next week. I want you there. That's Tom's territory, I said carefully. He's been handling our tech partnerships for years. And now you will. He straightened his tie, a gesture I'd seen thousands of times. Tom lacks vision. The company needs someone who understands legacy. You mean someone who won't question you? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Careful, Chelsea. Don't mistake my patience for weakness. Ryan made that error. The threat was clear. I gathered my papers, but his next words stopped me cold. Oh, and have security sweep your office. Someone's been accessing confidential files about the neuroxin trials. My pulse quickened. Worried about more environmental activists? No. He studied me. Just ensuring family loyalty remains intact. I escaped to my office, hands shaking as I finally opened Ryan's email. Attached were hundreds of documents, clinical trial results, internal memos, buried reports. My eyes caught phrases that made my stomach turn. Severe neurological complications, suppressed findings. Projected profit margins justify accelerated approval. A knock startled me. I slammed my laptop shut as Aunt Sophie sauntered in, her Hermes scarf a splash of calculated casualness. Darling, she purred. Such dedication, working through lunch. You're becoming just like your father. Was there something you needed? She perched on my desk, a move she'd perfected to assert dominance while appearing casual. Just checking on my favorite niece. That tech conference will be quite the challenge. Tom's so disappointed. I'm sure he'll survive. Oh, he will. We always do. She examined her manicure. You know, Chelsea, power is such a fickle thing. Today's heir apparent can become tomorrow's cautionary tale. Just ask your brother. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Regarding neuroxin trials, have more evidence. Meet tonight? Sophie's eyes narrowed at my screen. I turned it face down, but her smile told me she'd caught enough to be dangerous. Well, she stood, smoothing her designer dress. I should let you get back to work. Those trials won't oversee themselves. She paused at the door. Oh, and Chelsea, do be careful with your correspondence. Walls have ears, especially in this building. After she left, I stared at the text message, my finger hovering over the reply button. The neuroxin documents felt like they were burning through my laptop. Father's threats echoed in my head. Sophie's warning hung in the air. My phone buzzed again. Time's sensitive. Lives at stake. Please. I thought of Ryan, somewhere out there fighting for what he believed in. Thought of Father's carefully constructed empire, built on buried secrets and broken lives. Thought of the choice he'd forced on me in his office. Taking a deep breath, I typed, "Where and when?" The response came immediately. "Tonight, 8 p.m., Pier 39, come alone. Come." I deleted the conversation, knowing I'd just stepped onto a path I couldn't retreat from. Outside my office, I heard Tom's voice speaking urgently to someone. Sophie's heels clicked down the hallway. Father's empire hummed around me, a machine fueled by power and secrets, and I was about to throw a wrench into all of it. The ring felt heavy on my finger as I stood in Father's study, my hand intertwined with Ethan's. The antique grandfather clock ticked away seconds that felt like hours. Mother perched on the edge of her chair, while Sophie lounged against Father's desk with practiced nonchalance. "A tech startup," Father said finally, rolling the words around his mouth like spoiled wine. "And what exactly does your company do, Ethan?" "We're developing sustainable energy solutions," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "Our latest project could revolutionize—" "Fascinating," Sophie cut in. "Almost as fascinating as your modest background. Public school, community college, working-class parents." "Aunt Sophie," I warned. But she continued. "I'm simply pointing out that certain adjustments might be necessary. The Stewart name carries expectations." Father stood, moving to the window that overlooked our manicured gardens. "Chelsea understands those expectations. Don't you, dear?" The weight of unspoken threats hung in the air. I thought of the neuroxin documents, of my secret meeting at Pier 39 last night, of the whistleblower, a former researcher named David, who'd shown me evidence that could destroy everything Father had built. Actually, I straightened my spine. I need to tell you something else. Mother's eyes widened. She knew that tone, the same one Ryan had used before his exile. I'm leaving Stewart Pharmaceuticals. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the grandfather clock seemed to hold its breath. To join Ethan's company? Tom's voice dripped with mock concern as he appeared in the doorway. How romantic. To start my own consultancy, I corrected, focusing on ethical business practices and corporate responsibility. Father turned slowly from the window. Is that so? Yes. And there's something else you should know about the neuroxin trials. The crystal tumbler in Father's hand shattered against the wall, inches from my head. Mother gasped. Ethan stepped forward, but I held him back. You ungrateful child. Father's voice was deadly quiet. Everything I've built, everything I've sacrificed. Was it worth it? I pulled out my phone, displaying the documents David had given me. Worth hiding the deaths, the brain damage, worth buying off the families and threatening the researchers? Sophie's perfectly maintained composure cracked. You've been meeting with David. You knew? I turned to her, pieces clicking into place. Of course you did. You all did. Chelsea, Mother stood reaching for me. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I backed away from her touch. Ryan was right about everything. Ryan was weak. Father spat. Just like you're being weak now. That boy has poisoned your mind with his idealistic nonsense. That boy is your son. The words exploded from me. And Ethan is my choice, my future. If you can't accept that, then what? Tom stepped closer, his smile razor sharp. You'll expose the company, destroy thousands of jobs, ruin your own family? Family? I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign. Is that what we are? Because from where I'm standing, we're just pawns in his game of legacy and control. Father moved with surprising speed, grabbing my arm. You will not throw away everything I've built for some middle-class nobody with delusions of changing the world. Mark! Mother's voice cracked like a whip. Let her go! But it was Ethan who stepped between us, his presence calm but unmovable. Take your hands off her. The room froze. Nobody had ever dared speak to Father that way in his own house. Get out! Father's voice trembled with rage. Both of you. If you walk out that door, Chelsea, don't ever come back. You'll have nothing. No money, no connections, no family. I looked at Mother, saw the tears in her eyes, at Sophie's triumphant smirk, at Tom's calculating gaze, finally at Father, this stranger wearing familiar features, twisted by power and pride. I already have nothing, I said quietly, removing my family ring, because everything you gave me came with chains. I placed the ring on his desk, took Ethan's hand, and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Mother's soft sob, Sophie's sharp intake of breath, Tom's derisive chuckle. Chelsea, Father's voice stopped me at the threshold. If you do this, if you expose those documents, I will destroy him. His eyes fixed on Ethan. Everything he's built, everything he hopes to build, I will burn it all to the ground. I turned back one last time, meeting his gaze. Then I guess we'll burn together. Our new apartment felt impossibly small after the Stewart mansion, but watching Ethan cook dinner in our tiny kitchen, I felt something I'd never experienced in that gilded cage. Peace. Your mother called again, he said, stirring pasta sauce. Third time this week. I deleted the voicemail without listening. Any word from the investors? Meeting tomorrow. He hesitated. Tom showed up at our office today. The wooden spoon in my hand snapped. What did he want? To invest. Said he's looking to diversify his portfolio away from pharmaceuticals. Ethan's voice remained neutral, but his shoulders tensed. Mentioned some concerns about Stewart Pharma's stability. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A news alert about Stewart Pharmaceuticals. The headline made my blood freeze. FDA launches investigation into Stewart Pharmaceuticals following multiple deaths. Chelsea? Ethan moved closer, reading over my shoulder. They rushed neuroxin to market, I whispered, even after what David showed us about the trials. My phone exploded with messages. Mia sent links to more articles. Ryan texted from his environmental activist compound. Even Sophie, of all people, sent a cryptic, "We need to talk, urgently." A knock at our door made us both jump. Through the peephole, I saw Mother standing there, looking nothing like the polished society wife I'd grown up with. Her hair was disheveled, her designer clothes wrinkled. "Please," she said through the door. 5 minutes. Ethan squeezed my shoulder. "Your choice." I opened the door. Mother rushed in, clutching her tablet. "Have you seen the reports? Tom's been falsifying safety data, pushing through approvals without proper testing. Your father, he's not well. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss removing him. And you came here because? Because Sophie and Tom are making their move. They're using this crisis to take control of the company." She pulled up internal emails on her tablet. "Look, they've been planning this for months. The Neuroxin scandal, the FDA investigation, they orchestrated all of it. Why should I care? I'm out. Done. Remember? Because people are dying, Chelsea." Her voice cracked. "Real people. And because Tom's next target is Ethan's company." Ethan stepped forward. "The investment offer." Mother nodded. "It's a hostile takeover attempt. They'll use Stewart Pharma's remaining resources to absorb your company, then strip it for parts. They're desperate for cash after what they've done to the family business." My laugh sounded hollow. "Karma's a bitch, isn't it?" "Chelsea," Mother grabbed my hands. "I know what your father did was unforgivable, but this isn't about him anymore. Tom and Sophie will destroy everything in their path, including the good work you and Ethan are trying to do." My phone buzzed again. David, the whistleblower. "Need to meet. Have proof of Tom's involvement in patient deaths. Not safe to talk here." "I can't get involved," I said, but the words felt weak even to me. I walked away. "Did you?" Mother's eyes were shrewd. "Or are you just waiting for the right moment to strike back?" Ethan moved to the window, watching the street below. "We've got company. Black SUV, tinted windows. Been there since your mother arrived." Mother's face paled. "They followed me. I'm sorry, I didn't think—" "Who's they?" I demanded. "Tom's new security team. Ex-military. They've been watching all of us since the FDA announcement." My phone lit up with another message, this time from Ryan. "Don't trust Mom. It's a trap. Call me." I looked at Mother, really looked at her. The dishevelment seemed too perfect, the timing too convenient. "Why are you really here?" She met my gaze steadily. "Because sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to destroy what threatens it." She stood, smoothing her wrinkled clothes with suddenly steady hands. "You're not the only one who's been playing a long game, darling." The pasta sauce burned on the stove, filling our tiny apartment with acrid smoke. Outside, car doors slammed. Mother's phone chimed with a text, and for a split second I glimpsed the sender's name, Sophie. "Choose quickly, Chelsea," Mother said, moving toward the door. "Tomorrow's board meeting will change everything. Question is, which side of history do you want to be on?" She left us standing there, the smoke alarm shrieking overhead, as multiple sets of footsteps echoed up the apartment stairs. Ethan grabbed my hand, his expression grim. "Back door?" he asked quietly. I squeezed his hand, thinking of David's evidence, Ryan's warning, Mother's subtle threat, and Tom's approaching thugs. "No." We stopped running. "It's time to fight fire with fire." The footsteps grew closer. The cream-colored invitation sat on our kitchen counter like a loaded gun. Father's 60th birthday celebration, printed in gold leaf, as if luxury could mask manipulation. I'd been staring at it for 3 days, while Ethan pretended not to notice my growing obsession. "David's dead." Mia's voice crackled through my phone. "They're calling it suicide." The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering against the tile. Ethan's head snapped up from his laptop. "When?" "Last night. Pills. But Chelsea, he sent me something first. Files. About Tom's involvement in the Neuroxin deaths." My hands trembled as I cleaned up the broken ceramic. "Send them to me." "Already did. But be careful. The detective mentioned surveillance footage of men entering David's apartment before—" A sharp knock interrupted her. Through our apartment's thin walls, I heard Sophie's voice. "Chelsea, we need to talk about your father's party." "I have to go," I whispered to Mia, ending the call. Ethan moved closer. We don't have to open the door, but I was already moving, anger and adrenaline propelling me forward. Sophie stood in our hallway, looking expensive and dangerous in her Chanel suit. "Darling," she air-kissed my cheek. "This little experiment in independence is charming, but it's time to come home. Your father's not well." Funny timing. I kept my voice steady. Right after David's suicide. Something flickered in her eyes. Such a tragedy. Depression is a terrible thing. Is that what Tom's calling it? Her smile tightened. I don't know what you think you know. I know enough. I stepped closer. About the falsified trials, the covered-up deaths, the bribes. David showed me everything before you had him killed. Careful, Chelsea. Her voice dropped. Accusations like that could be dangerous. For everyone. Her eyes flicked to Ethan, still watching from the kitchen. Your father's birthday party, tomorrow night. Come alone. We'll discuss your concerns there. Is that a threat? It's an opportunity to protect what matters. She pressed something into my hand, a USB drive. Preview of tomorrow's board presentation. Tom's quite proud of his plan to acquire Ethan's company. Such innovative technology. Shame if something happened to it. My fingers closed around the drive. Get out. After she left, Ethan touched my shoulder. We could leave, start over somewhere else. They'd follow us. I plugged the drive into my laptop. Besides, I'm done running. Documents filled the screen. Acquisition plans, shell companies, evidence of corporate espionage against Ethan's firm. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Got your message. Meeting set with environmental defense lawyers tomorrow. They're ready to move on the neuroxin evidence. Another text arrived, from Mother. Whatever Sophie told you, don't trust it. Meet me tonight, alone. Ethan read over my shoulder. It's a trap. Everything's a trap. I stood, pacing our small living room. David's dead because he tried to expose them. They're coming for your company. Father's birthday party is just another power play, and I'm supposed to choose sides in their game. So don't play. That's not an option anymore. I showed him the latest news alert. Stewart Pharmaceuticals' stock plummets amid corruption allegations. Chelsea. Ethan's voice was gentle. Revenge won't bring David back. Or fix your family. This isn't about revenge, but even I heard the lie in my voice. It's about justice. Is it? He picked up Father's invitation. Because from here, it looks like you're letting them pull you back into their world. The world you fought so hard to escape. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with an email from Tom. Subject line, about tonight's accident. My blood ran cold as I opened the attached photo. Ethan's office building, smoke pouring from broken windows. The message read, electrical fire, such a shame. Tomorrow's party would be a good time to discuss preventing future accidents. Ethan's phone started ringing. His business partner, probably reporting the damage. He answered, moving to the kitchen, his face tight with controlled anger. I stared at Father's invitation, hearing Sophie's threats, seeing David's dead face in my mind. The USB drive hummed with dangerous secrets. My phone blinked with messages from Mother, Ryan, Mia, each pulling me in different directions, each hiding their own agenda. Tomorrow night, Father's birthday, the board presentation, environmental defense lawyers, all the pieces moving into place for a final confrontation. I'm going, I said when Ethan returned. Alone. Chelsea. They killed David. They're threatening you. This ends tomorrow. I picked up the invitation, feeling its weight like a death sentence. One way or another. The Stewart mansion loomed before me, its windows blazing against the twilight sky. Security guards prowled the perimeter, their earpieces glinting. Inside, Father's 60th birthday celebration was already underway. I clutched my small gift box containing a single USB drive loaded with David's evidence. My phone buzzed. Ryan's final warning. FBI raid scheduled for midnight. Get out before then. The guard at the door barely glanced at my invitation. Miss Stewart, they're waiting in the main hall. They certainly were. Sophie materialized first, her smile sharp as broken glass. Darling, you came alone. How brave. Where's Father? Preparing his speech. Tom's with him, reviewing the board presentation for tomorrow. She touched my arm, her fingers like talons. There's still time to choose the right side, Chelsea. I pulled away, scanning the crowd. Mother stood by the grand staircase, watching me with unreadable eyes. The room hummed with wealthy parasites, all pretending not to stare at the prodigal daughter's return. Chelsea. Father's voice cut through the murmur. He descended the stairs, Tom hovering at his shoulder. I wasn't sure you'd come. Happy birthday. I held out the gift box. Something to remember me by. His eyes narrowed as he opened it. The USB drive sat on black velvet, innocent-looking despite its lethal contents. What's this? Everything. The neuroxin trials, David's evidence, proof of Tom's involvement in Careful. Tom stepped forward. You wouldn't want anything unfortunate to happen to Ethan's remaining assets. You mean like the fire you started? Father's hand closed around the drive. My office. Now. The study felt smaller than I remembered. Father sat behind his desk, Tom and Sophie flanking him like guard dogs. Through the window, I saw Mother in the garden, speaking urgently into her phone. You think you can destroy everything I've built? Father's voice was deadly quiet. With what? A dead man's desperate accusations? David had proof. David had theories. Tom smiled. And a convenient drug habit. No one will believe. The FBI will. I pulled out my phone, showing them Ryan's message. They're coming tonight, with warrants. The color drained from Father's face. Sophie grabbed the phone, reading quickly. It's a bluff. Try me. I moved toward the door. I should go. Let you prepare your statements for the press. Wait. Father's voice cracked. Please. I paused, hand on the doorknob. What do you want? He suddenly looked old, diminished. Money? A position on the board? Name it. I want justice. Justice? Tom laughed. You want revenge, because we didn't bow to your little romance with the tech boy, because Daddy didn't approve, because you killed people. The words exploded from me. Because you covered up deaths, threatened families, murdered David, and you're so innocent? Sophie's voice dripped venom. Show him, Tom. Tom pulled out his tablet, playing a video. My blood froze. Security footage of me meeting David at Pier 39, passing him an envelope. Bribing a whistleblower, Tom said softly. That's federal prison time. And look, the timestamp, the night before his unfortunate overdose. I didn't. Of course not. Father stood. But who will believe you? The bitter daughter, paying off employees to destroy her family's company? My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. David's evidence was fake. You've been played. Another message from Ryan. Mom says get out now. It's a trap. Too late. Security filled the doorway behind me. Tom's smile widened as he held up a document. The board voted an hour ago. Emergency measures to protect the company from internal threats. He pointed to Mother's signature at the bottom. Even your mother agreed. You're now officially classified as a hostile entity. You can't. We can. Father's voice was ice. Everything you own, every account, every contact, frozen. Your little consultancy? Shut down. Ethan's company? By morning, it'll be under our control. And if you try to fight it, Sophie added, that footage goes public. How long do you think Ethan will stand by you when he learns you got his friend killed? The room spun. Through the window, I saw Mother walking away, her shoulders stiff. My phone went dark, already disconnected. Happy birthday to me, Father said softly. Security will show you out. And Chelsea, don't come back, ever. I walked through the party in a daze, past whispers and stares. Outside, the night air hit like a slap. My car wouldn't start, disabled probably. In my purse, my credit cards would already be worthless. They'd taken everything. And worse, they'd made me the villain of the story. My phone had one last message from Ethan. Something's wrong. All our accounts are frozen. What's happening? I stared at the mansion, at the celebration continuing without me, and felt the last pieces of my old life crumble away. 3 days after Father's birthday party, Stewart Pharmaceuticals stock plummeted 90%. I watched it happen on Mia's laptop, since mine had been remotely wiped. The business networks buzzed with speculation about internal corruption, failed drug trials, and pending FDA investigations. They're saying Tom's gone missing, Mia said, scrolling through news alerts. Private jet to Switzerland last night. My burner phone vibrated. Ryan's latest update. Environmental defense filing charges tomorrow. FBI moving in. Get to safety. You should go, I told Mia. Being seen with me isn't safe anymore. She closed her laptop. Neither is being alone. Ethan called again. He's worried. He shouldn't be. The company transfer papers were forged. His lawyers can prove it. That's not why he's worried. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with an unknown number. Mother's voice came through, breathless. Sophie's dead. The world tilted. What? Car accident. An hour ago. Mark. He's not making sense. He's in his office with a gun. Tom's documents. Chelsea, you need to come. Now. Why should I believe you? Because I have proof. About everything. David's death, the trials, the cover-ups. I've been gathering it for months. Please. I looked at Mia, who nodded grimly. I'll drive. The Stewart Mansion's gates hung open, security nowhere in sight. Mother met us in the foyer, her designer outfit wrinkled, mascara streaked. "He's destroying everything," she whispered, leading us upstairs. After Sophie's accident, he found her files. She'd been documenting it all, every illegal decision, every threat. Insurance, she called it. Against what? Against him, against Tom, against anyone who tried to take her power. Mother's hands shook as she pulled out a USB drive. Including me. Gunshots exploded from Father's study. We rushed in to find him shooting his computer screen, papers scattered everywhere. "Mark!" Mother screamed. He turned, eyes wild. "It's gone. Everything's gone. Tom transferred it all. Every account, every asset. That ungrateful snake." "Put the gun down," I said quietly. He laughed, harsh and broken. "Come to watch it burn, Chelsea? Your inheritance, your legacy?" This stopped being about inheritance a long time ago. Did it? He gestured at the chaos around him. "Then why are you here? To gloat? To finish what your brother started?" "I'm here because you're still my father." "Father?" Another harsh laugh. "I'm nothing now. Tom made sure of that. Sophie made sure of that. You made our own choices," I finished. "Just like you taught us. I taught you loyalty." "You taught us power," I corrected. "At any cost. Well, this is the cost." Mother stepped forward, holding up Sophie's USB drive. "Mark, there's something you need to see." "More betrayal?" He raised the gun. "Truth," she said firmly. "About Sophie, about Tom, about why David really died." His hand wavered. "What are you talking about?" "Sophie didn't have an accident," Mother's voice cracked. "Tom arranged it, just like he arranged David's death, just like he's arranged everything since Chelsea left." The gun clattered to the desk. Father collapsed into his chair, suddenly looking ancient. "Why?" "Because you taught him too well," I said softly. "Power at any cost, remember?" Mother plugged in the drive, pulling up documents. "Tom's been embezzling for years. Sophie found out, threatened to expose him, so he eliminated the threat, just like he tried to do with Chelsea." Father stared at the screen, at the evidence of his legacy's true cost. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. "They're coming," Mother said quietly. "FBI, SEC, everyone. Tom's gone, but they'll want someone to blame." Father picked up the gun again, his hand steady now. "I built this empire, and now you can choose how it ends," I said. "Running like Tom or facing it like a Stewart." He looked at me for a long moment. "When did you become so strong?" "When you forced me to choose between power and principle." The sirens grew closer. Father stood, straightening his tie one last time. "Lily, call our lawyers. Chelsea," he hesitated. "Take care of your brother, and that boy of yours." "What are you going to do?" He smiled sadly. "What I should have done years ago. Protect my family." As FBI vehicles swarmed the driveway, Father walked calmly downstairs to meet them, leaving his empire of shadows behind. Mother touched my arm. "It's over." But watching Father surrender, I realized it wasn't over. It was just changing shape, like all inherited sins do. The true cost of power was still being tallied, and somewhere in Switzerland, Tom was plotting his own revenge. Some legacies never die. They just wait for the next generation to claim them. The Stewart Mansion's auction drew a smaller crowd than expected. I watched from the garden as strangers picked through the remains of our legacy. Antique furniture, rare art, generations of carefully curated wealth reduced to lot numbers and bid cards. Mother appeared beside me, her designer clothes replaced by simple business wear. "The prosecutors offered your father a deal this morning." "And?" He refused, said the truth matters more than freedom now. She handed me an envelope. "He wanted you to have this." Inside was a single sheet of Stewart Pharmaceuticals' letterhead, bearing Father's precise handwriting. "I was wrong about power. It's not what we take. It's what we leave behind." The garden path crunched with approaching footsteps. Ryan, looking oddly formal in a suit, stopped short when he saw us. "The environmental defense team is ready," he said quietly. "They need your final statement." Mother squeezed my hand before walking away, leaving us alone among the roses she'd tended for decades. "Tom's been spotted in Geneva," Ryan continued. "Interpol's closing in. Let them have him. I folded Father's note carefully. We have more important work to do. Inside, the auction reached our father's prized art collection. Through the window, I watched Ethan examining the accounting ledgers with federal investigators, his integrity unchanged by the chaos around him. My phone buzzed. Mia, with news about the victims' compensation fund we'd established. The Neuroxin families would receive their first payments tomorrow. Not enough to heal their losses, but a start toward justice. Chelsea. Mother's voice drew me back. She held out a small box. I should have given you this sooner. Inside lay her grandmother's ring, the one she'd worn every day of her marriage. I can't. You can. Because you understand what I never did. Power isn't in the wearing of it. It's in the choosing. The auction hammer fell on the last lot. In the driveway, reporters gathered for Father's final press conference, where he would confess to everything. Not for immunity or mercy, but because truth had become his last remaining currency. Ethan joined us, his face grim. They found Sophie's complete records. The board manipulation, the threats against David, everything. It goes back decades. And now it ends, I said firmly. Does it? Ryan gestured at the mansion. Empires don't die quietly, Chelsea. They leave echoes. As if proving his point, my phone lit up with an anonymous text. Greetings from Geneva. Family business isn't finished. T. I deleted it without responding. Tom's threats felt hollow now, like the mansion itself. All facade, no foundation. Mother touched the empty flower beds she'd never plant again. What will you do now? The question hung between us, heavy with unspoken weight. The compensation fund needed management. Father's confession would trigger more investigations. Somewhere in Switzerland, Tom plotted his revenge. But watching Ethan coordinate with the victims' lawyers, seeing Ryan's passionate work with environmental defense, feeling Mother's quiet strength beside me, I realized the answer had been there all along. We rebuild, I said simply. Not empires or legacies, something better. The Stewart name isn't who we are anymore. I touched her grandmother's ring, feeling its weight. We're something new now. The auction crowd dispersed, leaving the mansion echoing with footsteps of departing strangers. Soon it would become something else. A museum, a school, a monument to power's cost. Father's note crinkled in my pocket as I took one last walk through the garden. The roses would bloom for new owners now. The paths would carry different feet. The legacy would fade like all things do. But standing there, watching Mother embrace Ryan, seeing Ethan's unwavering support, I understood Father's final lesson. Power wasn't in what we built or broke or avenged. It was in what we chose to grow instead. I left the garden gate open behind me, letting the past flow out like tide water. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tom's threats, Father's trial, the endless work of making amends. But for now, this was enough. The truth unveiled, justice begun, and family redefined not by blood or legacy, but by the choices we made in Power's wake. Some would call it karma, others, justice. But as I walked away from the Stewart mansion one last time, I called it something simpler: freedom.
The trunk of our Mercedes clicked shut with a hollow thud. Daniel tossed the last suitcase in while I buckled Mia into her car seat, both of us eager to head home after a long weekend at his parents' lake house. The late afternoon sun cast strange shadows across the driveway, making everything feel slightly off-kilter. "Ready for the drive home, sweetie?" I asked, adjusting Mia's favorite stuffed rabbit in her lap. She nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on something behind me. I'd noticed she'd been unusually quiet all afternoon, barely touching her lunch and keeping to herself while the adults packed up. At 6, she was typically a chatterbox, but today felt different. Daniel slid into the driver's seat, checking his phone before starting the engine. 3 hours till home. Everyone good? I settled into the passenger seat, already dreading the long drive. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was the way Daniel kept checking his rearview mirror, or how his knuckles seemed whiter than usual on the steering wheel. The first hour passed in relative silence, broken only by the soft hum of tires on asphalt and the occasional ping from Daniel's phone. I pretended to read on mine, but really, I was watching him from the corner of my eye. His jaw clenched every time his phone lit up, and he'd shift slightly in his seat, as if trying to angle the screen away from me. "Elizabeth, Mia's small voice came from the back seat, barely above a whisper. The girl in the trunk is asking to be let out. The car swerved slightly. Daniel's hands jerked on the wheel, and I grabbed the door handle, my heart suddenly hammering against my ribs. "What did you say, honey?" I turned to look at her, trying to keep my voice steady. Mia's face was dead serious, her brown eyes wide and unblinking. "The girl in the trunk, she wants out. She's scared." Daniel let out a forced laugh. "Sweetheart, there's nobody in the trunk, just our bags." But his voice cracked on the last word, and I noticed a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. The air in the car felt thick, almost suffocating. "Pull over," I said. "Don't be ridiculous, Elizabeth. It's just her imagination." "Pull over, Daniel. Now." He kept driving, his speed increasing slightly. "We're already running late, and—" "I said pull over." My voice came out sharper than I intended, making Mia flinch in her seat. Daniel's jaw worked back and forth, but he gradually eased the car onto the shoulder of the highway. Before he could fully stop, I was already unbuckling my seatbelt. "Stay in the car with Mia," I ordered, stepping out into the cooling evening air. My hands trembled as I walked to the back of the car. Daniel got out too, following close behind me. "This is absurd," he said, but there was an edge to his voice I'd never heard before. "You're scaring Mia with this nonsense." I reached for the trunk release, but he grabbed my wrist. His grip was tight enough to hurt. "Let go of me," I said quietly, meeting his eyes. In that moment, I saw something there that made my blood run cold. Fear, guilt, desperation. He released my wrist slowly. Taking a step back, "Elizabeth, please, let's just get home." I pressed the button. The trunk popped open with a soft click. Bags. Just bags, like he said. But as I moved aside his golf clubs, I noticed something that made my stomach lurch. A woman's scarf, silk, in a shade of purple I'd never wear. And beneath it, a business card for the Grand Hotel downtown, room 412, written on the back in unfamiliar handwriting. "It's not what you think," Daniel said behind me, but I barely heard him over the roaring in my ears. From the backseat window, Mia watched us with those knowing eyes, and I realized this was just the beginning of something much darker than I could have imagined. That purple scarf haunted my dreams for 3 nights straight. I'd wake up in cold sweats, my fingers clutching at phantom silk, while Daniel slept soundly beside me, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I stood at our kitchen counter, mechanically packing Mia's lunch, while watching Daniel through the window. He was on another early morning call, pacing the backyard in his tailored suit, gesturing with one hand while the other pressed his phone tight against his ear. Even from here, I could see the smile that never used to appear during work calls. "Is Daddy going away again?" Mia asked, her small hands wrapped around a glass of orange juice. I forced my fingers to relax their grip on the sandwich I was making. "What makes you say that, sweetheart?" "He has a special cologne on, the one for important meetings." My stomach clenched. I'd noticed that too. The expensive new fragrance he'd started wearing 6 months ago, right after his promotion. The one that sometimes clung to his shirts, even after they'd been washed. "Mommy?" Mia's voice pulled me back. "The lady in the trunk is sorry." The knife I was holding clattered against the counter. "What lady, Mia? What do you mean?" But Daniel chose that moment to stride back in, ending his call with a laugh that sounded nothing like him. "Ready for school, princess?" Mia's face closed off, something I'd never seen before our weekend trip. She nodded silently and slipped off her chair. "I'll take her today," I said, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "You have that big presentation, right?" Daniel's smile flickered. "Actually, I moved that to next week, heading to the downtown office for some meetings instead." Room 412 flashed through my mind. "Downtown? Which clients?" "Just internal stuff. Budget reviews, nothing exciting." He kissed my cheek, but his lips barely grazed my skin. "Don't wait up tonight. Dinner with the team." As he headed for the door, I noticed his overnight bag by the coat rack, the same one from our weekend trip, still unpacked. "Daniel?" He paused, hand on the doorknob. You forgot to unpack from the weekend. Want me to do it? His shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly. No need. I'll handle it later. After he left, I waited exactly 17 minutes before approaching the bag. My hands trembled as I unzipped it, but instead of evidence, I found nothing but his usual weekend clothes, neatly folded. Too neatly. Daniel had never folded anything in his life. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Coffee, you've been MIA since the weekend. 20 minutes later, I sat across from my best friend at our usual cafe, watching her face as I recounted everything. Mia's strange comments, the scarf, the hotel card, Daniel's behavior. Jesus, Elizabeth. Rachel set down her cup. Have you checked his phone? Credit card statements? Not yet. I'm afraid of what I'll find. Or afraid you won't find anything and you'll feel crazy. She leaned forward. Listen, I've known you both for 15 years. Daniel's changed since that promotion. The late nights, the new clothes, the sudden business trips, the perfume, I added quietly. Rachel's eyebrows shot up. What perfume? Sometimes, when he hugs me goodbye, there's this faint scent. Floral, expensive, not mine. Sophie, Rachel said, then immediately pressed her lips together. My blood ran cold. What did you say? Nothing, Rachel. She sighed, reaching across the table to grab my hand. Sophie Turner. She's the new VP of Marketing at Daniel's company. They've been working closely on some big campaign. How do you know this? Tom mentioned it at dinner last week. Said Daniel and Sophie have been pulling all-nighters at the office, really impressing the board with their dedication. I pulled my hand away, feeling sick. All-nighters. Elizabeth, maybe it's not. She's 30, I cut in. Young, ambitious, probably beautiful. You don't know anything for sure. But I did know. I knew it in the way Mia looked at her father now, in the careful distance Daniel kept between us, in the purple silk that felt like a noose around my throat. I need to go, I said, standing abruptly. Mia's school lets out early today. Rachel grabbed my arm. Don't do anything rash. I smiled, and something in my expression made her let go. I won't. I'm just going to start paying very close attention. As I walked to my car, I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app Daniel thought I never used. Time to see exactly what kind of meetings he'd been having downtown. The credit card statements painted a picture I couldn't unsee. Grand Hotel downtown twice a week for the past 4 months. Restaurant charges for 2 at places Daniel claimed were business meetings. A jewelry store receipt from last month. No gift had ever made its way to me. I sat in my parked car outside his office building, watching the evening crowd filter out. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Mia's words from that morning echoed in my head. The lady says she's going to take Daddy away. A flash of purple caught my eye. A woman emerged from the revolving doors, her dark hair falling in perfect waves. Young, beautiful, exactly as I'd imagined. Sophie. She paused on the steps, checking her phone with a slight smile. The same smile I'd seen in Daniel's recent photos, always cropped just enough to hide her face. My phone buzzed. Daniel. Working late again, don't wait up. 3 minutes later, he walked out, adjusting his tie. They didn't leave together. She went left, he went right. But I knew where they'd end up. I followed his car, keeping 3 vehicles between us. The familiar route to the Grand Hotel made my stomach churn. As he pulled into the parking garage, I drove past, circling the block once before parking across the street. Room 412. Their regular room, according to the hotel charges. I sat there, watching the building's gleaming facade, wondering how many other wives had done the same. My phone buzzed again. Rachel, did you find anything? I started typing a response when movement caught my eye. Sophie entering the hotel lobby, that purple scarf trailing behind her like a flag of victory. 5 minutes later, Daniel followed. Something snapped inside me. Before I could think, I was crossing the street, walking into the lobby with purpose. The young man at the front desk smiled professionally. I'm here to surprise my husband, I said, amazed at how steady my voice sounded. Daniel Martin, he's meeting a colleague in room 412. The clerk hesitated. I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't. Please, I cut in, pulling out my driver's license. I'm Elizabeth Martin. It's our anniversary. His face softened with sympathy. He probably saw this more often than he'd admit. 4th floor, end of the hall on the right. The elevator ride felt eternal. Each floor brought a new memory. Our wedding day, Mia's birth, family vacations, all tainted now by purple silk in room 412. I stood outside their door, hand raised to knock, when I heard laughter. Her laughter. Then Daniel's voice, lower than usual, saying something that made her giggle again. My phone buzzed. Mia's babysitter. Mia's asking for you. She seems upset. Reality crashed back. What was I doing here? What did I expect to accomplish by confronting them? This wasn't about catching them in the act. This was about something much bigger. I backed away from the door, my heels silent on the plush carpet. In the elevator, I caught my reflection, pale, shaking, but somehow stronger than I'd felt in months. Back home, I found Mia sitting on the stairs, waiting. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes too knowing for a 6-year-old. The lady in purple is mean, she said simply. She wants to hurt us. I sat beside her, pulling her close. No one's going to hurt us, sweetheart. But I need you to tell me everything you know about the lady, everything you've seen. Mia's small hand found mine. She comes in dreams, shows me things, bad things that haven't happened yet. What kind of things? Daddy crying, you being angry, a car crash. She paused, looking up at me. But we can change it, Mommy. The lady in the trunk told me so. I kissed her forehead, my mind racing. We will, baby. We'll change everything. That night, after putting Mia to bed, I opened my laptop and began to plan. Daniel thought he was being careful with his secret meetings and hidden expenses, but he'd forgotten one thing. I used to work in corporate investigations before Mia was born, and now, watching him sleep peacefully beside me, I realized it was time to put those skills to use again. The purple scarf was just the beginning. By the time I was done, room 412 would be the least of their worries. The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket as I walked through the corporate lobby. My old investigator's badge, carefully preserved from my previous career, drew barely a glance from security. Amazing how a confident walk and professional attire could open so many doors. Elizabeth? A familiar voice stopped me near the elevators. Rachel stood there, clutching a portfolio, her face pale. What are you doing here? Surprising Daniel for lunch, I lied smoothly. You look like you've seen a ghost. She glanced around nervously. We need to talk, not here. 10 minutes later, we sat in her car in the underground parking garage. Rachel's hands trembled as she pulled out a folder. I wasn't sure whether to tell you, she started, but after what you shared about Sophie, she handed me the folder. Tom's firm handles the company's legal affairs. These documents weren't supposed to leave the office. Inside were transfer papers. Daniel's signature appeared multiple times, moving substantial sums to offshore accounts. Sophie's name was there too, listed as a co-beneficiary. There's more, Rachel whispered. They're planning to leave the country, next month, together. My chest tightened. Mia's words about the car crash flashed through my mind. Elizabeth? Rachel touched my arm. What are you going to do? I slipped the folder into my bag. Nothing yet. I need to get upstairs. To do what? What I came here for. I pulled out my old badge. Sometimes you need to fight fire with fire. The executive floor was quiet when I reached it. Daniel's office door stood slightly ajar, his voice drifting out as he conducted a video call. I slipped past, heading for Sophie's office at the end of the hall. Her computer password took 3 attempts. Her birth date, according to the HR files I'd accessed earlier. Amateur. Within minutes, I'd plugged in the USB drive, downloading everything. Emails, financial records, private photos. A shadow fell across the desk. Can I help you? Sophie's voice was exactly as I'd imagined, Smooth, confident, young. I turned slowly, smiling professionally. Just it support. Routine security update. She stepped closer, her purple blazer immaculate. Funny, I don't remember requesting any updates. Your husband did, I said quietly, watching her face. Daniel Martin? Or did you think I wouldn't find out? The color drained from her face. I don't know what I'm talking about. I stood, pocketing the USB drive. The Grand Hotel might disagree. Room 412 has quite a view, doesn't it? Her composure cracked. Listen, I can explain. To who? The board, the SEC. I have enough evidence of financial fraud to bury both of you. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, playing a recording, Daniel's voice discussing their escape plans, captured by the bug I'd planted in his car last week. My daughter, I said softly, keeps having visions of a car crash. Funny how children sometimes know things before they happen. Sophie's hand trembled as she reached for her desk phone. I wouldn't, I warned, unless you want these files sent to every board member right now. One click. I held up my phone. Your choice. The phone clattered back into its cradle. Smart girl. I moved toward the door. Oh, and Sophie, purple isn't your color. Back in my car, my hands finally started shaking. Rachel's text lit up my phone. Daniel's looking for you, says it's urgent. Another message popped up, from our babysitter. Mia won't stop crying, keeps saying something bad is coming. I started the engine, my mind racing. The evidence I'd gathered would destroy them both professionally. But Mia's warnings about the crash haunted me. Was I pushing too far, or not far enough? My phone rang. Daniel. I let it go to voicemail, then played his message. Elizabeth, we need to talk. I know you were in the building today. Whatever you think you know, please just come home. We can fix this. Fix this, as if our marriage was just another business deal he could negotiate. I pulled out of the parking garage into the rain, heading for Mia's school. Behind me, a car engine revved aggressively. In my rearview mirror, I caught a flash of purple. Sophie's car, gaining speed. Mia's voice echoed in my head. A car crash. But we can change it, Mummy. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, watching Sophie's car weave through traffic toward me. Time to find out if my daughter's visions could really be changed. The call came during Mia's ballet class. My mother had collapsed at the grocery store. Massive heart attack. By the time I reached the hospital, she was gone. Just like that, as if the universe needed to pile on one more cruel joke. I stood in the hospital corridor, my phone buzzing with Daniel's messages. In a meeting, can't get away, handle the arrangements. Handle the arrangements. Like it was just another task on his to-do list. Mia sat in the plastic chair beside me, her ballet tutu still on, small fingers tracing patterns on the armrest. Grandma says she's sorry she didn't warn us. My head snapped up. What did you say? She's here. Mia pointed to the empty chair across from us. She says to check her garden shed. There's something you need to see. That night, after leaving Mia with Rachel, I drove to my mother's house. The garden shed's key was where it had always been, under a ceramic frog. Inside, beneath gardening tools and old flower pots, I found a locked metal box. The combination was my birthday. Mom had always been sentimental that way. Inside were letters, dozens of them, recent ones, all addressed to me, never sent. As I read, my hands began to shake. Elizabeth, I've seen him with her, the young woman in purple. I didn't know how to tell you. He reminds me so much of your father before he left. The last letter was dated 3 days ago. I confronted him today. He laughed it off, but there was something in his eyes that scared me. Be careful, sweetheart. People who hide secrets that deep can be dangerous when cornered. My phone lit up. Daniel again. Where are you? We need to talk about the funeral arrangements. I texted back. Mom's house. Cleaning out some things. His response came quickly. Stay there, coming to help. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across the shed window. I heard car doors, plural. Voices drifted through the evening air. Are you sure she knows? Sophie's voice. The way she looked at me today. We need those letters. Daniel's reply sent ice through my veins. They knew. Somehow, they knew about Mom's letters. Had they been watching her too? I slipped the letters into my jacket and moved deeper into the shed's shadows. Through a crack in the door, I watched them approach the house. Daniel tried his key, the one Mom had asked him to return months ago, claiming she'd lost it. "Check the garden," he ordered Sophie. Her mother was always puttering around out here. Sophie's heels clicked on the path, getting closer to the shed. I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding. The doorknob turned. A child's voice cut through the darkness. "Daddy? Why are you at Grandma's house?" Mia stood in the garden, still in her ballet clothes. Rachel stood behind her, arms crossed. "I thought you were handling the funeral arrangements," Rachel said, her voice sharp with accusation. Daniel stepped away from the house. We were just... We? Rachel's eyebrows rose as Sophie emerged from behind a hedge. "The lady in purple," Mia said clearly. "The one from the trunk. Grandma says she's dangerous." Sophie's face went white. "What is she talking about?" I pushed open the shed door, letters clutched to my chest. "She's talking about you, Sophie. You and Daniel, and how you both knew my mother was on to you." Daniel moved toward me, hands raised. "Elizabeth, whatever you think. She had a heart attack right after confronting you." My voice cracked. "What did you say to her, Daniel? What did you do?" "Nothing. It was just a coincidence." Like the offshore accounts, the escape plans, the convenient timing of her death. Sophie backed away, her purple blazer luminous in the gathering dark. "Daniel, you said this would be simple." "Simple?" I laughed, and the sound frightened even me. "Was that before or after you decided my mother needed to be silenced?" Mia tugged at Rachel's hand. "The lady in the trunk is crying now. She says she's sorry." "Stop saying that!" Sophie's composure shattered. "There was never anyone in any trunk." But Mia just stared at her, those knowing eyes seeing right through to whatever truth lay buried beneath Sophie's perfect facade. I pulled out my phone, finger hovering over a number. The police would be very interested in these letters, and the financial records, and maybe a toxicology report on my mother. Daniel lunged for the phone. In the chaos that followed, I heard Mia scream, not in fear but in warning, and suddenly I understood what she'd been trying to tell me all along. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about survival. The toxicology report arrived 3 days after Mom's funeral. Daniel hadn't bothered to attend, claimed he was stuck in meetings. Sophie had sent flowers, though, purple orchids. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Traces of digitalis," the medical examiner said over the phone. "Foxglove, common garden plant, but lethal in the right dose. Could be accidental." But we both knew it wasn't. Mom's garden didn't have foxglove, never had. I sat in my car outside the Grand Hotel, watching the entrance through a haze of exhaustion. 3 nights of surveillance had revealed their pattern, every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. Room 412. My phone buzzed. "Rachel. Police called. They're closing the investigation, natural causes." Of course they were. Daniel's company had half the city's officials in their pocket. Another message popped up from the babysitter. "Mia's fever's getting worse. Should I take her to the hospital?" My hand trembled on the steering wheel. Mia had been sick since the confrontation at Mom's house. The doctors couldn't explain it, but she kept talking about the lady in the trunk, now more than ever. Sophie's car pulled into the parking garage. 10 minutes later, Daniel's followed. Like a well-rehearsed dance. I pulled out the USB drive containing everything. The financial records, Mom's letters, the toxicology report, surveillance photos. One email to the board of directors would destroy them both. My finger hovered over the send button when a tap on my window made me jump. "Mrs. Martin?" A man in a suit stood there, badge visible. "Detective Collins, mind stepping out of the car?" 2 more officers approached from behind. A setup. "Elizabeth Martin, you're under investigation for corporate espionage and cyberstalking. We have a warrant to search your vehicle." "Let me guess," I said, stepping out. "Daniel's lawyers called?" The detective's face remained impassive. We received evidence of unauthorized access to private corporate files and concerning behavior following your mother's death. They found the surveillance equipment in my trunk, the photos, the USB drive, everything I'd gathered over weeks of careful planning, gone in minutes. Your daughter's quite imaginative, Detective Collins said, examining my phone. All these notes about someone in trunks. Your husband's concerned about her mental state, and yours. He killed my mother, I whispered. Your mother died of natural causes, Mrs. Martin. The medical examiner confirmed it. He paused. Though your recent internet searches about digitalis are interesting. My blood ran cold. They'd twisted everything around, made me look like the unstable one, the threat. My phone rang. The babysitter again. Mia's asking for you. She's crying about the lady in purple hurting someone else. I need to go, I said. My daughter's sick. Of course. Detective Collins smiled without warmth. But first, we'll need you to come down to the station, just to clear a few things up. 3 hours of questioning later, they released me with a warning and a temporary restraining order. I couldn't go near Daniel, Sophie, or their officers. Any evidence I had was now part of an ongoing investigation. I rushed to Rachel's house, where she'd taken Mia after the babysitter called. She's sleeping, Rachel whispered, leading me to the guest room. But Elizabeth, there's something else. She handed me her tablet. On the screen was an article from 6 years ago. Young woman's disappearance remains unsolved. The photo showed a girl in her 20s, another of Daniel's employees, another affair exposed. She vanished after threatening to go public, Rachel said quietly. They found her car at a train station. Case went cold. The girl in the trunk, I breathed. Elizabeth. Rachel gripped my arm. What if Mia isn't just imagining things? What if she's trying to warn us? In the guest room, Mia stirred in her fever sleep. Mommy, she murmured, the lady says we're running out of time. I touched her burning forehead, remembering Mom's last letter. People who hide secrets that deep can be dangerous when cornered. My phone lit up with a final message from Daniel. It's over, Elizabeth. Don't make this worse than it already is. But as I watched Mia toss in her troubled sleep, I realized it was far from over. I'd been playing their game, surveillance, evidence, legal channels. But they'd already rigged those rules. Time to make some new ones. The Mercedes purred along the coastal highway, Daniel behind the wheel, thinking this was his idea. A reconciliation drive, he'd called it. Just the three of us, like old times. Mia sat in her car seat, unusually quiet, watching the sunset paint the ocean blood red. I kept my hands folded in my lap, feeling the weight of the USB drive in my pocket, the one copy the police hadn't found. You've been reasonable about everything, Daniel said, breaking the silence. The restraining order, the investigation, I appreciate that. I smiled, remembering the missing girl's photo. Tell me about Jessica Porter. His hands tightened on the wheel. Who? The girl who disappeared 6 years ago, your previous assistant. Ancient history, he muttered. Office gossip. The lady says she's cold, Mia whispered from the back seat. She's always cold now. Daniel's face went ash white. Stop it, Mia. Stop saying things like that. Pull over, I said quietly. Elizabeth, pull over or I send these files to every board member right now. I held up my phone, including the ones about Jessica. He guided the car into a scenic overlook, empty except for one other vehicle, Sophie's purple BMW. You planned this, he accused, like you planned Mom's garden visit. His laugh was hollow. You can't prove anything. The trunk, Daddy, Mia said. She wants out of the trunk. Daniel's composure cracked. Shut up. Just shut up. Sophie emerged from her car, wearing that familiar purple blazer. Daniel, what's going on? I stepped out of the Mercedes, USB drive in hand. Show her, Daniel. Show her what happened to the last one who threatened to expose you. He said you disappeared, Sophie said slowly. Took a settlement. Moved abroad. Jessica Porter never left the country, I said. Did she, Daniel? His face twisted. You've lost your mind. All this conspiracy nonsense. The lady says check the trunk, Mia interrupted. Her trunk, Daddy. The one you locked. Sophie's eyes widened. What trunk? His storage unit, I said. The one he rented 6 years ago, paid in cash. I found the receipt in Mom's letters. Sophie backed away from Daniel. What did you do? Nothing. They're crazy, both of them. But his voice shook. I held up my phone again. The police are on their way. Real police this time, not your bought friends. They're reopening Jessica's case. Daniel lunged for my phone. I sidestepped, but he grabbed my arm, spinning me toward the cliff's edge. Sophie screamed. Then Mia's voice cut through everything. The lady says now, Mummy. Open it now. I pressed send. Daniel's phone buzzed, then Sophie's, then every device within range as the emergency alert went out. Missing person update, Jessica Porter. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Daniel's grip loosened. You can't prove anything, he whispered, but his eyes darted to Sophie's car. Check her trunk, I told the approaching officers. The purple BMW. He borrowed her car that week, didn't you, Daniel? Sophie fumbled for her keys, hands shaking. No, he wouldn't. The trunk popped open. Later, they'd find traces. DNA. Fibers. Enough to reopen everything. Jessica's disappearance, Mom's death, all of it. But in that moment, as Daniel fell to his knees and Sophie backed away in horror, all I could hear was Mia's soft voice. The lady says thank you, Mummy. She can rest now. Daniel looked up at me, defeated. How? How did you know? You taught me well, I said. About hiding things in plain sight, about using people's weaknesses against them. I touched Mia's shoulder, about underestimating the ones closest to you. The police moved in with handcuffs as the sun finally set, painting everything in shadows. Sophie sobbed against her car, mascara running in purple-black streaks. Was any of it real? I asked Daniel as they led him away. Any of it at all? He stopped, looking back at Mia. She really sees her, doesn't she? In the trunk? She sees everything, Daniel. Everything you tried to hide. As the police cars pulled away, Mia took my hand. The lady's smiling now, Mummy. She's not cold anymore. I squeezed her hand, watching the Mercedes gleam in the twilight. Some trunks, once opened, can never be closed again. But maybe that's how the truth finally gets free. The courtroom emptied slowly after Daniel's sentencing. Life without parole. Justice served in clean, measured words that couldn't begin to capture what he'd done to Jessica Porter, to my mother, to all of us. Sophie had taken a plea deal, trading testimony for immunity. Last I heard, she'd moved across the country, leaving her purple blazers and corporate ambitions behind. I lingered in the wooden pew-like benches, watching Daniel's parents hurry out, unable to meet my eyes. The evidence had been overwhelming. DNA, financial records, witness testimony. But it was Mia's words that had cracked him on the stand. The lady in the trunk forgives you, Daddy. He'd broken down then, confessing everything. How Jessica had threatened to expose their affair and his financial fraud. How one push had led to another. How my mother had figured it out, confronted him with proof. How the foxglove had seemed like his only option. Rachel touched my shoulder. Ready? I nodded, gathering my bag. As we walked out into the autumn sunshine, she hesitated. There's something you should know, she said. About Mia's abilities. I know, I replied. About Mom. Rachel's eyes widened. How? Found her diary last week. She had them too. The visions, the warnings. That's how she knew about Jessica, about Daniel. I smiled faintly. Guess it runs in the family. Elizabeth. Rachel gripped my arm. The police found something else in Sophie's trunk. Recent. My blood ran cold. What? A purple scarf and digitalis, the same kind that killed Mom. The pieces clicked into place. Sophie wasn't just covering for Daniel. She was learning from him. At home, Mia sat at her little desk drawing. Pictures of women in purple, of trunks and gardens, of secrets finally seeing daylight. The ladies are quiet now, she said without looking up, but they say there are others. Other trunks. Other secrets. I picked up one of her drawings, a detailed sketch of a car trunk, a purple scarf, a garden full of foxglove. Evidence that had been there all along, if only we'd known how to see it. My phone buzzed, a text from Detective Collins. Found 3 more cases, similar pattern, different cities. Want to consult? I looked at Mia, still drawing her truths in crayon and coloured pencil. What do you think, sweetheart? Should we help other ladies in trunks? She nodded, adding a final touch to her artwork, a key drawn in purple, unlocking something dark. That night, I sat in Mom's garden where it had all started. The foxglove was gone now, replaced with roses, red ones Mia's choice. The garden shed stood empty, its secrets already told. Rachel joined me, 2 glasses of wine in hand. You know, most people would move away, start fresh. Most people don't have what we have. A gift or a curse. I thought about Daniel in his prison cell, about Sophie somewhere out there, about all the other trunks still waiting to be opened. Both, I said finally. Mom knew it. That's why she kept watching, kept digging. Some secrets need to stay buried. Others need someone to let them out, Rachel finished. Inside, Mia's nightlight cast shadows on her bedroom wall, shapes that might have been women dancing, or keys turning, or truth finally breaking free. I touched the scar on my wrist where Daniel had grabbed me that last day on the cliff. It was fading now, like his hold on our lives. But some marks remain, reminding us of what we've survived, what we've learned, what we've become. My phone buzzed again. Another case, another city, another trunk waiting to be opened. I thought of Jessica Porter, finally laid to rest. Of Mom, watching over us through Mia's eyes. Of all the others still waiting for someone to hear their whispers. The lady says we're ready, Mia called from her room, her voice carrying that familiar certainty. I smiled, picking up my old investigator's badge from the garden table. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about becoming exactly what they feared you'd be. The one who sees their secrets, who hears the whispers, who opens the trunks they thought would stay locked forever. Yes, I said, watching the roses sway in the evening breeze. We're ready.
The taste of birthday cake turned to ash in my mouth as I stood in our living room doorway, watching my parents methodically pack away their lives into neat, labeled boxes. My 21st birthday, and they couldn't even wait until after the celebration to drop their bomb. I'm Amelia, and this is the moment my family shattered. You weren't supposed to be home for another hour, Mother said, not even looking up from the box she was taping shut. Her perfectly manicured nails gleamed as she smoothed down the packing tape with practiced efficiency. The salon finished early. My voice sounded hollow, even to my own ears. What's happening? Father emerged from their bedroom carrying another box. We're moving to Singapore. The opportunity came up suddenly, and we had to act fast. Singapore? The word felt foreign on my tongue. When? Tonight. Mother's voice carried that familiar clinical tone she used when delivering bad news to her patients. Our flight leaves at midnight. I stepped further into the room, my new dress suddenly feeling too tight, too constraining. But what about me? They exchanged that look, the one they'd perfected over years of silent communication. Finally, Father set down his box and cleared his throat. You're 21 now, Amelia. An adult. You've always been independent, and frankly, this is better for everyone. Better? The word came out as a whisper. You've been a hindrance to our plans for years, Mother said, still focused on her packing. We've put off this move 3 times already because of your various situations. My hands began to shake. Situations? You mean my hospitalization after the car accident? My college graduation? Among other things. She finally looked up, her eyes cold and distant. The truth is, we've outgrown this life, this town, this... She waved her hand vaguely in my direction. We need more. More than your daughter? My voice cracked. Father stepped forward, reaching for his wallet. We're not completely abandoning you. There's enough in this account to cover 6 months of rent and expenses. By then, you should have figured out your next steps. The credit card he held out seemed to mock me. You've been planning this. How long? Does it matter? Mother interjected. The decision is made. We've already signed the contracts, sold the house. The new owners take possession next week. I felt the room spinning. Where am I supposed to go? You're a smart girl, Father said, dropping the card on a nearby box when I didn't take it. You'll figure it out. You always do. Maybe your grandmother will take you in, Mother added, her tone suggesting she'd already discussed this with Grandma Evelyn. She's always been overly attached to you anyway. The carefully arranged flowers on the coffee table caught my eye, my birthday bouquet, delivered this morning with a card that read, "To our dearest daughter." The lies were everywhere, wrapped in pretty paper and false smiles. I got into medical school, I said quietly. I was going to tell you tonight at dinner. I got the acceptance letter yesterday. For the first time, Mother's movements faltered. Father's expression flickered with something, pride, regret, before smoothing back into careful neutrality. That's wonderful, he said, but his eyes were already drifting back to the boxes. You'll do well, I'm sure. We need to finish packing, Mother added, effectively ending the conversation. The movers will be here in an hour for the boxes we're shipping. I stood there, watching them resume their methodical dismantling of our family home, feeling like a ghost in my own life. The birthday dress I'd spent hours choosing suddenly felt like a costume, a child playing at being grown up while the adults made the real decisions. My phone buzzed in my purse. Probably Ethan, wondering why I wasn't at our meeting spot for the birthday dinner he'd planned. How could I tell him that while I was getting my hair done for our celebration, my parents were plotting their escape? I turned and walked out, leaving behind the credit card, the flowers, and the last remnants of my childhood illusions. They didn't call after me. They didn't even look up. In the driveway, I paused, keys in hand, and realized with startling clarity that this wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning. They thought they were writing me out of their story, but really, they were just giving me the first page of my own. And revenge, I decided, would make one hell of a opening chapter. Grandma Evelyn's hands trembled as she set down her teacup. 3 days since my parents' departure, and the betrayal still hung thick in the air like smoke after a house fire. They've been planning this for over a year, she said, sliding a stack of papers across her antique coffee table. I found these when I was helping your mother organize her study last spring. The documents blurred before my eyes. Bank statements, property listings in Singapore, email correspondences dated months back. Each page revealed another carefully constructed step in their escape plan. Why didn't you tell me? My voice cracked. Would you have believed me? Evelyn's eyes, so like my mother's but warmer, searched my face. Karen, your mother, she's always been skilled at making others doubt their own perceptions. A memory surfaced. Me at 16, telling Mother about catching Father in a heated phone conversation with an unknown woman. She'd convinced me I'd misunderstood, that I was being dramatic. The woman turned out to be his Singapore business contact. They've listed the house for sale months ago, I said, scanning a real estate contract, while I was still living there, while they were helping me plan for medical school. Your acceptance letter, Evelyn said quietly. Did you tell them? Yes. I laughed bitterly. Right before they walked out, Mother didn't even pause in her packing. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Evelyn's housekeeper showed Aunt Lily in, her face pinched with concern. I just got off the phone with Karen, she announced without preamble. She's furious that you're staying with Mother instead of following their plan. Their plan, I echoed. The apartment they arranged, the one the credit card was supposed to pay for. Lily's eyes narrowed. They're saying you're being deliberately difficult. Of course they are. I stood up, pacing the length of Evelyn's living room. Heaven forbid their perfectly orchestrated abandonment doesn't go according to schedule. Amelia, Evelyn's voice carried a warning note. Don't let bitterness poison you. Too late. The words tasted like metal in my mouth. Did you know they've been transferring money to offshore accounts? It's all here in black and white. Years of planning while I worked part-time jobs to avoid asking them for help with college expenses. Lily picked up one of the bank statements. This can't be legal. It probably isn't. Evelyn's hands clasped tightly in her lap, which is why I've already contacted my lawyer. I stopped pacing. What? I'm changing my will, she said firmly. Everything goes to you. They won't be able to touch it. Mother, think carefully, Lily cautioned. Karen won't take this well. Karen stopped being concerned about my wishes the day she decided to abandon her only child. Evelyn's voice carried steel beneath its softness. My phone buzzed. Ethan, again. I'd been avoiding his calls since that night, unsure how to explain that my perfectly curated family life had been a house of cards all along. You should talk to him, Lily said gently. He came by the house yesterday looking for you. I can't. I swallowed hard. Not yet. Your parents' choices don't define you, Evelyn said, rising slowly from her chair. But your response to them will. The doorbell rang again. This time, Uncle Derek stood in the doorway, his expression grave. They're selling everything, he said without greeting. The house, the vacation property, even Karen's medical practice. Mark's already accepted a partnership position in Singapore. How long have you known? I demanded. His silence was answer enough. Get out. My voice shook with fury. All of you who knew, who watched them plan this and said nothing, get out. Amelia? Lily started, but Evelyn raised her hand. Let her be, she said quietly. She needs time. They filed out, leaving only Evelyn and me in the suddenly too quiet room. I picked up another document, a lease agreement for a luxury apartment in Singapore's most exclusive district. They're going to regret this, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. I'm going to make sure of it. Evelyn touched my shoulder gently. Revenge is a double-edged sword, dear one. Then I'll learn to bleed. I met her eyes in the mirror above her fireplace. They taught me that much, at least, how to smile through pain. The papers in my hands held more than just evidence of their betrayal. They held the seeds of their destruction. And I intended to plant them carefully, water them with tears, and watch them grow into something that would shatter their carefully constructed new life just as thoroughly as they'd shattered mine. The storage unit door groaned open, revealing 21 years of carefully curated lies. Mother's meticulous labeling system made it easy to find what I was looking for. Boxes marked family documents and financial records stood in neat rows against the back wall. I'd found the key in Father's old desk drawer, along with a receipt for a year's prepaid rent on this unit. They'd planned to keep these secrets locked away, probably hoping I'd never think to look here. You shouldn't be doing this alone, Ethan said from behind me. After a week of avoiding him, I'd finally called. Some truths needed a witness. I need to know everything. I pulled out the first box, dust coating my fingers. Help me or leave. He answered by grabbing another box. The first files revealed nothing surprising, old tax returns, insurance policies. But deeper in the second box, I found it, a folder labeled Singapore Initiative 2019. 2 years of planning, documented in excruciating detail. Look at this, I said, holding up a series of emails. They started transferring money offshore before I even graduated high school. Ethan read over my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. They were setting up shell companies. And here's the best part. I pulled out a familiar document. Remember when they convinced me to sign over my college fund to better manage it? They used it as seed money for their Singapore venture. That's theft, Ethan said quietly. That's family, I corrected, bitter laughter bubbling up. At least, their version of it. My phone buzzed, another message from Mother. They'd been alternating between threats and guilt trips since discovering Grandma Evelyn's plan to change her will. They're getting desperate, I murmured, showing Ethan the message. Listen to this. Your grandmother's mental state is questionable. We're only trying to protect the family legacy. Protect it for themselves, you mean? A flash of color caught my eye. A red leather diary wedged between files. Mother's handwriting filled its pages, dating back 3 years. Oh, God. My hands shook as I read. They never planned to tell me in person. There's a letter here they wrote, explaining everything. They were going to mail it after they left. Ethan's arm wrapped around my shoulders. Amelia. Wait, there's more. I flipped through the pages. They've been monitoring my bank accounts, my phone records. They knew about my medical school acceptance 2 weeks ago. They read my emails. That's why they rushed their departure, Ethan realized. They knew you'd want their support during medical school. The storage unit's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I absorbed this new betrayal. Every headache-inducing flicker matched the pulse of rage building behind my eyes. My phone buzzed again. Uncle Derek this time. Your parents are filing for conservatorship over your grandmother. They're claiming she's being manipulated. The diary fell from my numb fingers. They're trying to take control of her assets before she can change her will. They won't succeed, Ethan said firmly. We have evidence of their planning, their financial manipulation. Evidence they never thought I'd find. I gestured at the storage unit. They're getting sloppy, desperate. A new message lit up my phone. From Sophie, my cousin. Mom and Dad are fighting about you. Dad says what Aunt Karen and Uncle Mark did was wrong, but Mom's taking their side. Things are getting ugly. I looked at the scattered documents around us. Proof of years of calculated betrayal. They're not just destroying our family, I said slowly. They're forcing everyone to choose sides. What are you going to do? I picked up Mother's diary, its pages heavy with secrets. They taught me well, how to plan, how to wait, how to strike where it hurts most. I met Ethan's concerned gaze. They just never thought I'd use those lessons against them. Amelia, revenge won't heal this. No, I agreed, tucking the diary into my bag. But it might prevent them from hurting anyone else. They're trying to take everything from Grandma Evelyn now. Who's next? The storage unit's door slammed shut behind us, the sound echoing like a judge's gavel. In my bag, the diary pressed against my side, a weapon loaded with their own words, their own confessions. They'd taught me another lesson, too. Family secrets make the best ammunition. The engagement ring caught the morning light as I twisted it around my finger. Ethan had proposed last night, after weeks of careful planning. It should have been the happiest moment of my life. Instead, I sat in Grandma Evelyn's lawyer's office, watching my world tilt on its axis once again. Your parents' legal team has filed an emergency petition, Mr. Chen said, sliding documents across his desk. They're claiming elder abuse and undue influence. Evelyn's hand found mine under the table. They won't succeed. They don't need to succeed, I said, the realization hitting me like ice water. They just need to drag this out long enough to drain your resources. There's more. Mr. Chen's expression tightened. They've submitted evidence suggesting you've been manipulating your grandmother's medication schedule to affect her decision-making capacity. The room spun slightly. That's impossible. I've never... They have pharmacy records, he interrupted gently, showing irregular refill patterns over the past month. Evelyn's grip tightened. That's because I switched pharmacies. They're also claiming financial exploitation. He tapped another document. Large withdrawals from your accounts coinciding with visits to your grandmother. My engagement ring felt suddenly heavy. The withdrawals were for the medical school deposit, and Ethan's ring. They're building a narrative, Mr. Chen explained. One that paints you as an opportunistic granddaughter taking advantage of a vulnerable elderly woman. The irony burned like acid. While they're the ones trying to seize control of her assets. My phone buzzed. Aunt Lily. We need to talk. Derek's found something. They're not just attacking me anymore, I said, standing. They're trying to destroy my future. Medical school, my engagement, my relationship with Grandma. They want to take it all. Amelia. Evelyn's voice carried a warning. Don't let anger cloud your judgment. No, I agreed, picking up the legal documents. Anger makes things crystal clear. Uncle Derek was waiting at his office, looking more haunted than usual. You need to see this. He pulled up security footage from my parents' medical practice. There I was, entering after hours 2 weeks ago, except I'd never been there. Someone used your old keycard, he explained. They accessed patient files, financial records. Your mother's claiming you stole confidential information. They're framing me. The words tasted like ashes. But who? Sophie. Derek wouldn't meet my eyes. Your mother convinced her it was for your own good, to stop you from making a terrible mistake. My cousin, my friend, another betrayal to add to the growing collection. They're good at this, I said quietly, turning family against family. Not everyone. Derek pulled out a USB drive. I made copies of everything before they could alter the timestamps. And there's something else. Emails between your parents and their Singapore partners dating back 5 years. My phone buzzed again. Ethan, this time. Your parents just called me. They're saying they have proof you've been lying about everything. I looked at my reflection in Derek's office window, at the girl my parents had shaped with their careful lessons in manipulation and control. They'd taught me too well. Tell them you believe them, I said. Tell them you're having doubts about me. What? Why would I? Because we need them to think they're winning. I touched the USB drive in my pocket. They're not the only ones who can play this game. Derek cleared his throat. Amelia, revenge won't give you back what they took. I don't want it back. I met his gaze steadily. I want to build something new, something they can't touch. But first, I need to make sure they can never hurt anyone else the way they hurt me. My phone lit up with another message, from Mother this time. We're only trying to protect the family legacy. Stop fighting us and we can work something out. I thought of the evidence in my possession, of Sophie's betrayal, of the careful trap they were laying. They expected me to react with anger, to make mistakes, to prove their narrative right. Instead, I would give them exactly what they wanted, a daughter who appeared to be falling apart under pressure. Let them think they were winning. After all, they'd taught me the most important lesson of all. The best revenge is served with a smile. The whispers followed me through the hospital corridors like poison gas. 2 nurses stopped talking when I passed, their eyes sliding away from mine. In the cafeteria, a group of residents huddled over their phones, glancing up at me with poorly concealed interest. I found out why when I checked my email. Someone, Mother, obviously, had sent an anonymous letter to the medical school board questioning my mental stability and ethical fitness. Copies had gone to every major hospital in the region. They're saying you manipulated your grandmother's medical records, Sophie said, appearing beside me like a ghost, and that you're unstable, potentially dangerous to patients. I closed my laptop slowly. Is that why you helped them frame me at the clinic? Because you believe I'm unstable? She flinched. I didn't. They said it was for your own good, that you needed help. Help? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make nearby students turn. Like how they helped me by stealing my college fund? Or by abandoning me on my birthday? That's not... She stopped, twisting her hands. They're saying you've been lying about everything. That you're the one who... Get out! My voice was steady, even as my hands shook. And tell them their plan worked. Everyone's talking about the unstable med student who might snap at any moment. My phone buzzed. Ethan, canceling our dinner plans. Again. His messages had grown increasingly distant since my parents contacted him. Another email arrived, from the medical school board. My admission was under review pending investigation. I walked out of the hospital into the rain, not bothering with an umbrella. The water mixed with tears I refused to acknowledge. Amelia. Uncle Derek stood by my car, holding a folder. You need to see this. Inside were printouts of more emails, my parents coordinating with their lawyers, planning each step of my destruction. They'd anticipated every move, set up every domino perfectly. They're thorough, I said, voice hollow. I'll give them that. There's more. Derek hesitated. They're planning to have Evelyn declared incompetent. They've already lined up doctors willing to testify. My hands crumpled the papers. Of course they have. Mother probably treated their children for free, built up favors over years. You need to stop fighting them, he said quietly. They won't stop until they've destroyed everything you care about. I looked at my reflection in the car window, at the girl they'd created, the one they thought they could control or destroy at will. No. Amelia. They want me to break? I turned to face him. Fine, I'll break. I'll have a very public meltdown. Give them exactly what they want. Let them think they've won. And then, I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the evidence I'd gathered. Then I'll show everyone exactly who they really are. Every manipulation, every lie, every betrayal, documented in their own words. They'll never forgive you. Good. I got into my car, because I'll never forgive them either. At home, Grandma Evelyn was waiting with Aunt Lily. Their faces told me they'd heard the news. They're saying terrible things about you, Lily said, reaching for me. I stepped back. They're saying true things about themselves. They just don't know it yet. Revenge won't heal this wound, Evelyn warned. I don't want healing. I pulled out Mother's diary, the USB drive, the emails. I want justice, and I want them to feel what I felt, watching everything they built crumble around them. My phone lit up with another message, from Mother. Stop this now, and we can still fix things. You're only hurting yourself. I thought of the medical school board, of Ethan's growing distance, of Sophie's betrayal. They were right, I was hurting. But pain, I'd learned, could be weaponized. I'm going to give them exactly what they want, I told Evelyn and Lily. The unstable daughter, the family scandal, the public meltdown, and when they're celebrating their victory, when they think they've finally broken me completely. I left the sentence unfinished, but I could see in their eyes that they understood. Sometimes the only way to win against masters of manipulation is to play their game better than they do, and they'd taught me so very well. The annual family charity gala became my stage for destruction. Mother and Father had flown back specifically for this event. Their reputation demanded it. They'd spent 20 years building their image in this community, and I was about to tear it down in 20 minutes. I wore red, their favorite color for special occasions, the dress they'd bought me for my college graduation before they'd decided I was disposable. Ethan stood across the room, deliberately avoiding my eyes. He'd chosen his side. You shouldn't be here, Sophie whispered as I passed. Everyone's talking about your condition. That's the point. I smiled, the expression sharp enough to make her step back. Mother held court near the stage, elegant in black silk, while Father worked the room with practiced charm. They'd orchestrated everything perfectly, the sympathetic whispers about their troubled daughter, the concerned glances, the carefully crafted narrative of parents trying to protect their unstable child. Ladies and gentlemen, the event coordinator announced, we'll now hear from Dr. Karen about this year's charitable initiatives. Mother approached the podium, radiating professional warmth. I moved closer, USB drive heavy in my clutch. Before we begin, I called out, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room, I think we should discuss a different kind of charity. The kind that involves stealing from your daughter and abandoning her on her birthday. The silence turned sharp. Mother's smile didn't waver. Amelia, sweetheart, this isn't the time or place for... It's exactly the time. I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the presentation system. Let's talk about offshore accounts, about forged documents, about 20 years of calculated manipulation. Father appeared at my elbow, gripped tight on my arm. You're making a scene. No, I corrected, shaking free. I'm telling the truth. Finally. The first email appeared on the screen. Mother discussing their escape plans years ago, then bank statements, legal documents, their carefully documented betrayal displayed in high definition. She's unwell, Mother announced to the crowd, voice thick with manufactured concern. We've tried to keep this private, but... Private? I laughed. Like how you privately drained my college fund? Or privately planned to have Grandma Evelyn declared incompetent? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw Uncle Derek move toward the exit. Aunt Lily's hand pressed to her mouth, Sophie's face pale with recognition. Then everything went dark. The backup generators kicked in, but the damage was done. My evidence vanished with the power. Father stood by the electrical panel, key in hand. This is exactly what we've been worried about, Mother said smoothly. These paranoid delusions, these public outbursts. Security approached, summoned by Father's discreet signal. I saw Ethan turn away, unable to watch. You taught me too well, I said as they reached for me. about manipulation, about control, about destroying people while looking like the victim. I learned from the best. Take her out quietly, Father instructed. She's clearly having another episode. The crowd parted as security led me away, their faces a blur of pity and secondhand embarrassment, exactly as my parents had planned. Their unstable daughter finally breaking down publicly, proving everything they'd been saying. Outside, the night air hit like a slap. My phone buzzed. Grandma Evelyn. They're on their way to my house with the doctors. I'm sorry, dear one. I couldn't stop them. Another message followed, from the medical school board. My admission wasn't just under review anymore. It had been revoked. I sank onto the steps, the concrete cold through my dress. They'd won. Every carefully laid plan, every piece of evidence, every attempt at justice, destroyed by a simple power switch and years of carefully cultivated influence. A shadow fell over me. Uncle Derek stood there, face grim. They're having Evelyn committed tonight. They've already filed the emergency papers. It's over, I whispered, the fight draining out of me. They've taken everything. Not everything. He held out a phone. Not mine, but one I recognized from the storage unit. Mother's old device, the one she'd replaced before leaving. What? They taught you about manipulation, he said quietly, but they forgot about backup plans. Your grandmother wasn't the only one recording everything. I took the phone, its weight familiar yet different. Not evidence of their betrayal this time, but proof of their destruction. Sometimes you have to lose everything to see clearly what you need to do next. And I could finally see. The hospital boardroom felt like a courtroom, with mother and father seated on one side, their lawyers flanking them like guards. Grandma Evelyn sat beside me, her hand steady on my arm despite the doctors they'd brought to testify about her condition. I placed Mother's old phone on the table. Before we begin this competency hearing, there's something everyone needs to see. More fabricated evidence? Mother's smile was pristine, practiced. Sweetheart, you're only making things worse for yourself. I pressed play. Mother's voice filled the room, not her public voice, but the cold one I remembered from that birthday night. The video showed her and father in their study, dated 3 years ago, discussing their plans in detail. The Singapore deal is almost final, father said on screen. We just need to move the assets quietly, the girls' college fund first, then the offshore accounts. And Evelyn? Mother asked. Once we're established overseas, we'll have her declared incompetent. Everything transfers to us as next of kin. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Mother's lawyer started to speak, but I wasn't finished. There's more. I switched to a more recent recording. Mother talking to her doctors, arranging false testimony about Evelyn's mental state. Then emails detailing their plans to destroy my medical school prospects. These recordings are inadmissible, their lawyer protested, obtained without consent. By your own phone, I cut in, looking at Mother. The one you thought you'd wiped clean before replacing it. The one that kept backing up to your cloud account because you never changed the settings. Father's facade cracked first. You had no right... Like you had no right to steal my future? My voice stayed steady. To plan my grandmother's imprisonment while pretending to care about her welfare? Everything we did, Mother began, her professional mask slipping, was for the good of... Your Singapore dreams? Evelyn's voice carried unexpected steel. Your offshore accounts? Tell me, Karen, when did you decide your own daughter was worth less than your ambitions? The boardroom door opened. Uncle Derek entered with 2 police officers and a man in a suit. Miss Thompson? The suit approached. I'm with the Financial Crimes Division. We'd like to ask your parents some questions about certain irregular transactions and potential elder abuse allegations. Mother's perfect mask shattered. You wouldn't dare. After everything we've done for you. Done for me? I stood, finally letting the rage show. You stole from me, abandoned me, tried to destroy everything I cared about. And when that wasn't enough, you tried to lock away the only person who ever truly protected me. We were protecting you from yourself, Father insisted, but his eyes were on the officers. No, I gathered the evidence files. You were protecting yourselves, and you taught me exactly how to do the same thing. The next hour passed in a blur of statements and signatures. Mother and father were led away for questioning, their lawyers scrambling to damage control. The competency hearing was dismissed, Evelyn's rights fully restored. "You did it," Sophie whispered from the doorway. She'd slipped in during the chaos. "I'm so sorry I didn't believe you sooner." I looked at my parents through the boardroom windows as they were escorted out. They'd taught me everything about power and control, about maintaining perfect facades while destroying lives. They just never expected me to learn those lessons so well. "Amelia," Evelyn said softly, "it's over." But it wasn't. Not really. Because in destroying them, I'd become what they made me. Someone capable of methodically dismantling others' lives. The victory tasted like ashes. My phone buzzed. "Ethan. I saw the news. Can we talk?" "What will you do now?" Derek asked, gathering the evidence files. I watched mother and father disappear into separate police cars, their carefully constructed world crumbling around them. They'd wanted to write me out of their story, but instead, I'd become its author. Now, I picked up mother's phone, the instrument of their destruction. Now I learn how to write my own story, one that doesn't end in revenge. Because they'd taught me one final lesson. Victory and healing aren't always the same thing, and I had to choose which one I wanted more. The courthouse steps felt different under my feet as I left the sentencing hearing. Mother and father's faces had remained stoic as the judge detailed their financial crimes, but I caught the slight tremor in mother's hand, the tightness around father's eyes. Their perfect masks finally cracking. "You didn't have to come today," Ethan said, waiting beside his car. "Yes, I did." I handed him the envelope I'd been carrying. My medical school acceptance letter. The board reversed their decision after reviewing the evidence. His smile was warm, genuine. "You're going to be an amazing doctor." Like mother, like daughter? The words tasted different now, less bitter. At Grandma Evelyn's house, Sophie waited on the porch, uncertainty in every line of her body. We hadn't spoken since the hospital boardroom. "I brought your old photos," she said, holding out a shoebox. "The ones from when we were kids, before everything." Inside were memories captured in fading color, birthday parties, family vacations, moments when the smiles might have been real, or maybe we'd all just gotten better at pretending. "They weren't always like this," Sophie whispered, "were they?" "No." I touched a photo of mother teaching me to ride a bike. "They were exactly like this, perfect on the surface, hollow underneath. We just didn't know how to see it then." Evelyn's voice carried from inside, where she was talking to Uncle Derek about the foundation we'd started, supporting children of parental abandonment, using my parents' seized assets to heal what they'd broken in others. "The Singapore property sold," Derek reported, joining us. "The money's been transferred to the foundation's account." I nodded, thinking of the empire my parents had tried to build on stolen dreams and broken trust. Now it would build something else entirely. "There's something you should see," Evelyn said, holding out a letter. "I found it in your mother's old medical school yearbook." The paper was yellowed, the handwriting achingly familiar, my grandmother's, decades younger. A letter to my mother, full of warnings about ambition's cost, about the price of putting success above love. She'd seen it coming, even then. "She never read it," Evelyn said softly. "I couldn't save her from becoming what she feared most. But you saved yourself." "Did I?" I looked at the foundation paperwork spread across her table. "Or did I just learn to destroy more efficiently?" "You learn to heal," Ethan corrected, taking my hand. "Starting with yourself." The engagement ring caught the light, no longer feeling like a weight. We'd postponed the wedding during the trial, but now... "I have something for you," Sophie said, pulling another envelope from her bag. "Letters from your parents, written in custody before sentencing. I haven't read them." I took the envelope but didn't open it. Some words couldn't fix what was broken, and some breaks needed to stay that way to heal properly. "The foundation's first fundraiser is next week," I said instead. "We're helping 3 students who lost their college funds to parental fraud." Like mother, like daughter, Sophie echoed my earlier words, but with a different meaning. You're building something from what they destroyed. Later, alone in my apartment, I finally opened my parents' letters. Their words were what I expected, justifications wrapped in apologies, manipulations hidden in declarations of love. But they didn't have power anymore. My phone buzzed with a message from the medical school board. My first rotation would be in pediatrics, helping children heal, protecting them from harm, building something new from the lessons of the past. I placed my parents' letters in the shoebox with the old photos. Not to forget, but to remember differently. They'd taught me everything about power, control, and destruction. But they'd also taught me, unwittingly, about resilience, healing, and the strength to choose a different path. The foundation paperwork waited on my desk, next month's cases ready for review. 3 more families to help, 3 more stories to change. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction at all. It's creation, building something beautiful from the ashes of what was lost. And I was just getting started.